My boyfriend is very excited about a party that I am not invited to. We've been together for about 1 year, and he's amazing. We've had arguments here and there, but nothing too serious, except this one. Last week he got invited to a college party, and I wasn't, to which I don't really mind. The problem is, he was invited by one of the sorority girls who has made it clear that she has a crush on him in her socials. He plays football. She even has a highlight on her Instagram tagged, "My Crush," with his pictures. My boyfriend told me there's nothing to worry about because he is only interested in me. He said she is delusional to think that there could be something between them. The party is on Friday and he's been very excited about it. He already prepared what he was going to wear yesterday on Tuesday. He bought new LV shoes and designer clothes. Normally he doesn't care. He's always showing me the party group chat, telling me how amazing everything is planned out. As he was showing me, he got an Insta message from the sorority girl saying, "We should try it then." He swiftly swiped it away and acted like it was nothing. When I asked him, he said she wants to learn how to throw a football. All right. I also overheard him talking with his best friend about how amazing it's going to be. Honestly, I feel like this excited him more than our anniversary, and it's hurting me. I asked him if I can join him, and he told me it's an invite-only party, so I can't come with him. I need advice on what to do because I feel so overwhelmed and I'm probably not thinking straight at the moment. What should I do? Oh, this is alarm bells deluxe. Let's look at the comments. Your gut is clearly telling you something's up. Trust yourself and always believe his actions over his words. A man who is honest and respects you and your relationship will hear you out and consider your feelings about this. That is a date, homie. Tell him, let's text her together. Just to be clear, I'm invited as a friend or as a date because I already have a girlfriend. His response will tell you all you need to know. He's her date to this party. He clearly doesn't respect your relationship enough to tell her no. Dump him. If he isn't already cheating, he will be very soon. Trust your gut. Yeah, hard to disagree with those comments there. Let's go to the update. Hey everyone. Thank you all for opening my eyes. I didn't want to think the worst about my ex-boyfriend, but you all were right. After making this post, I had a lot to think about and evaluate from the comments I received. Some were harsh to read, but I had to. I spent the next few hours crying alone in my apartment. For a very long time, I've avoided the idea of snooping through his phone, but on Thursday night, I did, and found very disturbing things. I went through his messages and took relevant screenshots of him talking to his sorority friend, but what I did not expect to find was the things I saw on his Discord. That's why I could not make an update earlier. He mentioned that I'm his girlfriend to her and said he would leave me if she was up for it. He sent her flowers every Monday of the week since they started talking. Guess what? He's only bought me flowers twice in about a year. Since I could not go through everything on his Discord at night, I had to log in using QR code on my laptop and found out he was messaging young girls, some as young as 13. The next morning I woke up and rushed to my mum's house and turned off my phone. We talked for hours until I felt better and she advised me on what to do. I cannot mention every disgusting thing he has done here, but they would send each other pictures back and forth. One of them was so in love with him, she would send him money and random gifts. Whether he reciprocated really doesn't matter, and I don't care. I wanted to kick him out of my apartment so badly, but I thought it would be better for me to pretend everything is fine for one more day, so I messaged him and told him about my mum's till Monday. Let him have fun with the sorority girl because it sure will be his last. I took video recordings and screenshots of every conversation and reported him to the local police on Friday evening with the attachments, and they got back to me on Saturday with a few questions. I told them where he was, and I am the sole reason he got arrested in the same designer clothes he had on Friday. After all this, I had started realizing how manipulated everything he said to me was. He was my second boyfriend, and I overlooked a lot of things because I was in love. Once there was a girl looking for him outside our apartment, and she was at most 16. I knew she was in high school or had just finished by the conversation she was having on her phone, but it never hit me that he was grooming her. I feel so disgusted, and I probably need therapy to get through this. I no longer feel sad about him and the sorority girl. She can have him. He was on a college scholarship. I think that's gone too. Wow, so he was even more of a prick than we previously anticipated. Geez, good riddance. Anyway, that's all she wrote for that one. Let's move on. Okay, this one was from the Am I the A-hole subreddit. It was written by user Mama of4, and it's titled, Would I be the a-hole if I called a little girl's mother to ask why my son wasn't invited to her birthday? I, 28 female, have twin 5-year-old boys, Jude and Jonah. They go to a private Jewish kindergarten where it's very customary to invite the whole class to birthday parties. It might even be a school rule, but I don't think I'm going to take this to the school. Jude and Jonah are very well mannered and reserved. Obviously I'm biased, but they've always gotten along with all of their peers and have never gotten into any drama. Jude is definitely a slow reader and we've gotten him a tutor, but it's still been very hard for him. At our synagogue, the bathroom signs just say men and women, with no little picture, and they're single bathrooms. 2 weeks ago, Jude walked into the women's by accident, and I guess the door wasn't locked correctly because he walked in on this woman named Jess, who is the mother of a little girl in his class. He says he saw her on the toilet and ran out, closed the door, and said sorry. Jude immediately came up to me and told me, and he was very embarrassed. I told him it wasn't a big deal and he should just remember to knock next time, and the longer word says women. He said he will, and that he thought it would be a stalled bathroom like most public bathrooms, and that's fair, so I left it there. Jess came up to talk to me after and told me like he needed to be punished. She said it was extremely inappropriate. I assured her he didn't know and wouldn't do it again, but she said there's no way he can't read men and women, and that her daughter can, and told me I had to nip this behaviour in the bud. I often feel talked down to because of my age by other parents at the school, so I just said I would take care of it and left it there. On Friday, her daughter was handing out birthday invites and gave one to Jonah, not Jude. They both asked her why, and she said her mum said not to give him one and wouldn't tell her why. Jude cried the whole rest of the day and wouldn't tell anyone why because he doesn't want to be a tattletale. I asked Jude if anything else happened between the two of them, and he promised me it didn't and said they've even been playing together at recess this whole last week, and her daughter was trying to cheer him up by suggesting ways to sneak him in. I'm honestly livid. I wouldn't care if she'd given neither of them an invite, but giving one twin and not the other is incredibly rude and passive-aggressive. I'm considering calling her and talking about it because I think it's ridiculous to hold this much of a grudge against a 5-year-old. Would that make me an a-hole? Should I just decline Jonah's invite? I think the birthday rule is silly and it's her choice who she invites, but this is just ridiculous. Edit. Synagogue and school are two separate places, but there's a lot of overlap with the people. Also, I'm not planning on sending either of them to the party at the moment, but I'm considering calling her to confront her about it, rather than just having this weird dynamic where I'm hearing things from Jude that come from her kid, that come from her. Geez, this woman sounds like the type of person that invites drama into her life. You know the type. Let's go to the comments. Not the a-hole. I think the friend's mum is being overly dramatic and petty about the whole situation. I think given all the factors, like no picture, he's 5 years old, etc., are enough to show that the bathroom incident was a simple mistake that could have happened to any kid in similar circumstances. The initial conversation with the mum, where she said you have to punish your son, seemed weird to me. Had the girl only been friends with one of your sons, maybe the party invite would have been more understandable, but here it seems the girl is friends with both of your sons, and the party invite was just the mum being ultra petty about the bathroom incident. Not the a-hole. On the day of the party, take your boys to an adventure park or movie, something special for the two of them. Have a conversation with them about how some adults make bad choices, and that we're going to make good choices and be kind even when someone is unkind to us. As for the other mum, decline the invitation. There'll be many more years of interaction with these kids. When things calm down, you might be able to take her aside and have a conversation with her about it, but you're the only one who can feel it out to know if that makes sense. Normally I'd go with the person whose birthday it is to get to decide who to invite, but this time I think it's fairly reasonable to ask why one of the twins weren't invited. Passive aggressiveness towards a 5-year-old is never okay. You would not be the a-hole. Also, is it really normal for 5-year-olds to know how to read? Now for some more thoughts from OP. Yeah, I genuinely believe if it was anyone else's kid she wouldn't care, but I'm the youngest mum there, and her little group always feel the need to tell me that I'm doing everything wrong since they're more experienced parents than me. Like she's just been waiting for my kid to do one thing wrong to prove that I'm irresponsible and could never possibly teach my kids manners. Jude's reading. He just started with a reading tutor. They said it could be dyslexia since that's the only area he struggles in, but he's learning faster one-on-one, and they think he'll be all caught up by first grade, so we aren't too concerned about it just yet. Talk to the school. No way a teacher didn't know he was upset. I don't really feel like talking to the school. I think the whole everyone needs to be invited rule is BS, but I think it's crazy to invite one twin and not the other. I don't know if their teacher knew why he was sad, but he didn't tell her, so it's not her fault. Someone asks, are they all in the same class? How many students? Yes, they are. There's one class per grade, but it has like 30-something kids. Jude is the only kid in class not invited. Someone suggests asking her why he wasn't invited, declining the invite, and maybe send something to the little girl since it's not her fault. That's the plan right now. We have nothing against her daughter. She's adorable. She also lives at her dad's during the week, which is probably where she gets her sweetness. Okay, on to an update. Hi everyone. Thank you everyone who responded to my last post. I tried my best to reply or at least upvote to every comment. I was happy to hear that I wasn't the a-hole, but as far as advice went, I got a lot of mixed feedback. Some telling me to call Jess out, some telling me there's nothing I can do, some telling me to host a party on the same day and invite all the kids in their class. I decided to contact our rabbi, whose wife is also the assistant principal of their school. They said they think talking with Jess and having a sit-down conversation is the best way to go. On Saturday, they asked Jess to stay after services to have a talk. It was the rabbi, his wife, me, my wife, Jess and her ex. The rabbi's wife explained that school policy says that you can either invite less than half of the class or the entire class, and Jude was the only child not invited. Jess replied that Jude is horribly ill-mannered, and that's why she didn't want him at the party. We all were curious to know if she had any other instances of his bad manners, and she started listing that he likes running around and jumping off things, typical 5-year-old behaviour. It was honestly comedic, since anyone who spent any time with them two knows Jonah is by far the crazy one. But anyways, she couldn't come up with any real examples of his bad behaviour, other than the bathroom incident, which she horribly exaggerated since the last time we talked about it. The rabbi's wife said that the only way this could be a valid reason for the school board was if she filed a complaint with the synagogue and the school, and then they would both investigate. So she caved and said they could both come, and we said we would decide if we wanted to. Her ex came up to us as we were leaving, after not saying anything the whole meeting. He said not to come to the birthday party since Jess is going to be a mumzilla and probably be an a-hole the entire time. We organised a playdate for a few days after the party as planned at his house, and he ensured the boys would get goodie bags and cake, clearly the most important things. Anyways, good news all around. The boys are pretty much over it, and they think we're being drama queens. Anyway, thanks Reddit. Okay guys, and that's the end of that one. Yeah, pretty good ending there. Sounds like the ex-husband's got his head screwed on, which is probably the reason why he's the ex-husband and not still with that battle axe of a woman. Jeez. Okay, let's move on. Okay, popping over to the relationship advice subreddit, this one was written by user TurboMaxShoot'em, and it's titled, My wife wants to name our baby after her dead ex-boyfriend. When my wife and I met, she had broken up with her boyfriend almost a year prior. We went on a couple of dates until I noticed she slowly stopped talking to me. I found out she'd gotten back with her boyfriend. We remained friendly since we would run into each other at the gym. That's how we met. A year later they broke up. I decided to go for it again and asked her out. She was pretty upfront about him, and I learned that they've been off and on for almost 4 years. She left him because he started to get abusive. We get married a little over a year later. A few months later, she gets pregnant. Last week, I was sitting in the kitchen studying until I heard my wife yell out, crying. I ran over to her to ask her what was wrong. She had difficulty speaking, but she eventually showed me a post on Facebook that a mutual friend between her and her ex had posted. Her ex had gotten into a motorcycle accident and had died. My wife was and is an avid motorcyclist who stopped riding once she got pregnant. She knew how passionate he was about motorcycle riding just as much as her, and how tragic it is. I console my wife and help her get to bed, letting her know that I'm here for her. I didn't think much about the whole thing until my wife told me last night that she wants to name our baby after him. I hesitated for a bit and told her that I would feel uncomfortable with it. For one, it's her ex. Second, he was abusive. Why would she want to honour someone like that? My wife got pretty upset and just wouldn't hear me out on my reasons. She won't talk to me at all. Am I really in the wrong here? I'm just thinking that my wife is extremely emotional at the moment since she's pregnant and trying to process her ex's death. Any advice? On to the comments. Just think about how every time you say your kid's name, you would think about the ex and how your kid would feel knowing he was named after his mum's ex-boyfriend. Okay, I'll be the a-hole here. Is the kid yours? She's left you for him before. You got married really quickly, and she got pregnant shortly after. It doesn't exactly sound like she was over him given her response and wanting to name the kid after him. On the not a-hole side, you are absolutely correct in not wanting to have your child named after her ex. That's an incredibly disturbing thing to have to explain, which shouldn't even be an issue in the first place. I really hope she's just being in a heightened emotional state, because that is very disrespectful to you and the marriage. She's pregnant and grieving. She's not going to be the most rational right now. Say no, be compassionate, but stand your ground on this one. You don't want your kid to have a name you'll resent. Chances are she won't either, years down the line. All the best. Yeah, I tend to agree with those last couple comments there. You don't want to name anything just to regret it later, least of all your kid. Let's go to an update. Hi all. Wow, so this post got a lot more traction than I expected. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your advice and showing your concerns, not just for myself, but for my wife. It means a lot. Now, onto the update. For Easter, we already had plans with her family to go to church and then have a barbecue at her sister's. Not wanting her family to see any tension, I saw this as the chance for her to have to speak to me. As we're getting ready for church, I tell her that we need to talk about everything now. She agreed and sat down with me. I did tell her that there is absolutely no way we're naming our baby after her ex, or any of our kids if we have even more. She agreed and apologised for acting irrational. Also, I know a lot of you suggested that I get a paternity test. I know that I'm 100% the father. I didn't want anyone to get my anxiety up since, while it may seem rational, jumping into an extreme conclusion and making things worse. I thought it out, but I still did ask if she was still in love with her ex and if she did cheat. She adamantly said no. She had already stopped loving him, even before they broke up. She tried to make the relationship work, but she just wasn't in love with him anymore. She described him as not being a good person at all. She apologised for making me feel that way. I told her that I understand she's going through a lot of emotions right now and being pregnant doesn't help at all, but I had to ask on why she would want to name our baby after him, even after all she has told me. She started to get choked up and was shaking. I told her that she could tell me. She confessed that when her and her ex broke up, the last thing she told him was that she wished he would fall off his bike and die. Also, the bike that he died riding on was a bike that she strongly suggested that he buy, even though it wasn't his first choice. She also talked about how accidentally getting pregnant and her ex suddenly dying is a lot for her to handle. She wasn't expecting to be a mum so soon, and her life is about to change when she really didn't want it to. She talked about how she thought we'd travel and that she'd continue racing her motorcycle. Now she's not even sure if she'll be able to ride again. She actually thought she might be able to ride again once she's had the baby, but her ex's death reminded her how much of a risk it is. She doesn't want to risk her life when she has a family. She feels gutted. Regardless, she kept stressing out to me on how she wouldn't change a thing about her life now, and that she's happy to be married to me and is going to be a mum. We're the best things that has ever happened to her. Anxiety also runs in my wife's family. My wife gets intrusive thoughts about how her ex died too. It's so bad that she has a hard time sleeping sometimes. After discussing things, she decided that she'll be going into therapy. She has her first appointment this week. Damn, yeah, I don't blame her for feeling a bit guilty after that. But yeah, you really can't dwell on things like that. It'll only make your situation worse. Easier said than done though. I'm sure she knows deep down it's not her fault, but yeah, that'd eat away at anyone. Let's read a couple more comments to close this one out. Personally, the thing I find the strangest in this story is that he got back together with her. Like, you all went out a couple times, then she ghosts you, and you later find out she's back with her ex. Fine, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Then a year later you find out they've broken up, and you ask her out again. She tells you about her on-again, off-again relationship with her abusive ex, and you think, yep, this is the person I want to marry in 1 year's time. I guess I just don't understand Opie's thought process. Yeah, that's a good point. She must have been a catch if you know what I mean. And for those that ride motorcycles, stay safe out there. My boyfriend gives me horrible gifts and I'm fed up. We've been together since 2019. Our first Christmas together, I got him an Alexa with the accessories to make his apartment a smart home. He moved into an apartment around his birthday, so I got him a microwave, toaster, silverware, etc. His most recent birthday, I got him an at-home golf set because he recently became obsessed with golf. It cost more than expected, but I was happy to give it to him. Our first Christmas together, he gave me a video game and the money he owed me. For my birthday, he got me another video game. My birthday and Christmas is coming up, same day. I bought him a signed Steelers football because that's his favourite NFL team. He just told me the gift he got me, and this might be dramatic, but I had to stop myself from crying. He went on a solo vacation earlier this year, and my birthday present is that he printed the pictures from his vacation and put it in a photo book. This is his gift to everyone, his mum, sister, brothers, friends, and me. He mentioned it before, and I politely told him I did not want that gift. I actually told him I would hate it, and he laughed it off. I've been telling him since we started dating that I like jewellery and would love that as a gift. He tells me he hates going into jewellery stores, and more recently, a couple days ago, said, "You already have so much jewellery, why would I want to buy you more?" At this point it feels disrespectful, and after finding out my gift today, I told him to just not get me anything. It literally feels like he doesn't care about me or my feelings. He calls me materialistic because I like to buy myself things, and I feel like if I tell him how I truly feel, he'll just call me materialistic some more. Or maybe I am materialistic. Maybe this is a sweet and thoughtful gift, and I ruined it for him. Nah, this is a self-centered, lazy gift, and the fact that he's giving it to everyone, not just you, yeah, just screams lazy to me. Also, what? Photos from a solo vacation? I'd understand if it was you two together, but just him? Like, please. Let's go to the comments. He is so self-absorbed. To gift people pictures of his vacation, nobody wants that. Why didn't you go? Seems like rubbing it in. You're not wrong to be upset at all. Opie replies, "The vacation was 3 months of travelling. He asked me to go, but I told him I absolutely could not take that much time off work, so he went alone." Is he a bad gift giver or just a cheap ass who gives everyone vacation photos as a gift? Would need to be really incredible to not be a bad idea, and even then it's still a bit weird. Opie replies, "He can be cheap at times, but he has admitted it's because he grew up poor and has anxiety about it. He's afraid of ending up as bad as he was as a kid. We still occasionally go out to dinner and do stuff. Sometimes he pays, sometimes we split it, or he'll pay the bill, I'll tip, things like that. He took a lot of pictures of his surroundings on his trip. I've seen all the pictures, mountains, water, beaches, grass, etc. I don't want a photo book. I told him it would just collect dust at my house. Sorry if that sounds mean." He sounds like a jag-off who doesn't care enough about your interests when you care about his. I say, if you want to be petty, return the football. If you can't, give it to your dad or someone who wouldn't appreciate it, and get him a $20 jersey for the wrong team. Just say, "You like football, right? What does it matter what team? You probably got jerseys at home anyhow." If he kicks up a fuss, then dump him when he throws a fit when you tell him about what you got your dad, and some pics of him being meh about it. Maybe how he'd wash the signatures off to play an actual game with it. Opie replies, "I'm giving the football to my nephew. He's getting nothing now, lol. If anything, I'll get him a beanie or a coffee cup with the wrong team or sport. I could give the football to my dad, but he doesn't watch football, so he'd just be confused." One commenter asked if Opie had the talks with the boyfriend. Opie says, "I talked to him about it last night, unsure if that is still my gift. He's offended I don't like his heartfelt gift that he sat down and put together. I told him I understand he's taking time putting the pictures in the photo album, but I do not want or deserve the same gift as his co-workers and parents. I want a gift that shows me that he knows me and listens." He started laughing and saying, "Sorry I can't buy you Prada or Louis Vuitton." He was joking, but it still offended me. I've never in my life asked him or anyone for those types of brands or gifts. I don't even own it. I asked him if he at least understood my point of view. He said no and told me he thinks it's crazy. He explained he doesn't know where or how to buy jewellery and does not online shop. I gave him a couple stores to look at, but he didn't say much about it, so we'll see. I understand he grew up not receiving many gifts or celebrating things. I empathised with that. But if I've been here the past 4 years trying to celebrate Thanksgivings, birthdays, Christmas, exchange gifts, and he's still not adjusting, then I guess it's just a part of him I can't change. He keeps making comments about me being materialistic, stating I expect a $200 gift, which I've never asked for. I told him I wouldn't mind a $20 to $50 gift, and he told me I'm lying. I'm not sure where he's gotten this idea of me being so mean and spoiled just because I work hard and provide for myself, but it hurts that I'm not being heard or seen. Since I turned 17, everything I own I've paid for myself because I no longer wanted to bother my parents. We haven't spoken at all today, so it's just been me reading these comments and rethinking a lot of things. Thank you for checking in. Yeah, rethinking things alright, like your relationship with this dude. I don't know, gift giving is a large part of a lot of people's love language, and sometimes the languages, they don't quite mix. Let's go to an update. A couple people have been asking for an update, so I thought I'd just make a quick post. We broke up. My birthday party was on the 23rd, and he told me he'd been working the entire day. When I called him to check in, he said he got the day off and was going to spend it watching football with his friends. I reminded him about my party, and he said he hates going out and already promised his friend he'd watch football. I must have said, "But it's my birthday," in confusion like 10 times before he said it's not your birthday, it's just your birthday party, and I'm not coming. I told him that was okay, because I was over it. I asked him how Christmas was going to work, and he told me he would stop by. He reminded me that he didn't get me anything because I didn't want his photo album, and he refuses to buy my jewelry. He then told me how much it hurt his feelings that I didn't want his photo book, and said, "I've never met someone so inconsiderate." This is when we sort of started to argue. I told him if the photo book came with something more heartfelt, then I'd appreciate it more, but I don't deserve the same gift being given to his co-worker and his parents. I'm giving this gift to everyone that I love. Yes, I understand that, but you could have added a handwritten card or notes, literally anything. Also, yes, I said I liked jewelry, but if you saw literally anything that reminded you of me, I would have loved it. I just wanted to know you care or thought about me. He said, "For my ex's birthday, I played her a song on the piano. I don't understand why you can't be that type of girl." I asked him how he would know if he's never done that for me. I didn't even know he could play the piano. My ex in high school played me the piano, and I thought it was the sweetest thing. If he played it for me, I would have loved it. I'm not sure why he decided to bring up exes. He told me I was just trying to make him feel guilty, which he will never do. His words, not mine. So we broke it off. After I broke it off, he said it's probably for the best because he's looking for someone he can buy a house and combine his money with. I reminded him that I'm the only one with savings and also make more than him. I asked for the golfing set back and told him he could keep all the other gifts. He asked why and is now ignoring me when I text asking for a time to meet up and get it. He said it was stupid that I wanted it back. I do feel a bit guilty when I see videos of people receiving horrible gifts and pretending to love it, so I don't know how to feel. I definitely could have sucked it up, but I guess it was time for us to go our separate ways. Yeah, I agree. In all honesty, the guy sounds like a prick. A gift really doesn't have to be expensive, it just has to be thoughtful. And it's clear this guy does not think about her or her interests at all. What about you guys? Let me know in the comments. Maybe you got some similar stories you'd like to share. Anyway, let's move on to our next one. Okay, we're on True Off My Chest. This one was written by a now deleted account, and it's titled, "I slept with another woman on a break, and now my wife has changed. My wife and I, both 40, have been together for 15 years. The past 3 years were turbulent and we fought all the time, until about a year ago when we decided we needed a time apart, or separate. We chose the first option. The first period we went no contact at all, but then we started texting, then meeting for lunch, etc., and dates. We talked about the problems. I felt miserable without her, and I hoped she did too because I missed her every day. The problems that we always fought about, the mundane stuff, were so trivial now, and we talked about how our issues were really non-issues. She said she loved and missed me so much, and I felt so much relief that she felt the same way, so I confessed that I was miserable without her, and how our problems were nothing compared to not being with her. We made a plan to reconcile, and about a month ago she moved back home. Before we separated, we discussed what we were allowed to do during our separation. She said that she didn't want to sleep with others, but that I was free to do it because we will be legit separated and she doesn't have a right to decide over me while we aren't a couple. I slept twice with a colleague of mine. It wasn't good and I regretted it, so I ended it. It basically wasn't worth it. When my wife moved back, she asked me if I did something. She didn't. I told her the truth and she was silent for a while and then said that it was fair enough and not cheating because we already discussed the possibility. Since we talked about it, she's been distant. She said that she is happy and that she missed home, and I too missed her, and I haven't been this happy, but I don't know. When I asked her, she said she's fine and not to worry. But I don't know, I've caught her crying a few times, but she says it's the news and the world's condition. My wife is wild in bed, and I usually don't need to do much to put her in the mood. Now she doesn't react to my touch, and sometimes we try for a long time, but she says she can't and starts crying. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know if I'm imagining things, but even with a hug or a kiss, I feel her going rigid in my arms. But she insists it's nothing, and just that she isn't in the mood, or tired. I miss her warmth. Gee, yeah, that's tricky. Sounds like she became insecure because she knows now that you find someone that you're working with attractive. Let's see what the comments say. You still see that colleague at work every day? I can't figure your wife is happy about you sleeping with anyone else, let alone a co-worker. One commenter adds, he had plans to get back to his wife and then slept with a co-worker he'll see every day, and he wonders why his wife is upset. This dude is a joke. It's just like the Rachel and Ross situation. They were on a break, but it very much felt like a betrayal to Rachel. If my husband and I were separated and I found out he slept with a co-worker, I'd be climbing the walls, thinking about if he'd always found her attractive, if he'd always wanted to sleep with her, if he would be tempted again, if they flirt with each other at work, and constantly questioning if I could trust him around her. I don't know, man. I know you were separated, but a co-worker would be hard to swallow. Put yourself in her shoes and see how you'd feel. I'd imagine you'd probably need to make some decisions around your work if you want to salvage this with your wife. To be completely honest, you should have never crapped where you ate at work. Unless you get a new job or she's already quit, you've made that bed. A random person you met at a bar or even a dating app would have been appropriate, but the second you slept with someone you're in close proximity with, you may have very well put the final nail into the divorce. Get a couples therapist or a lawyer, because those are the two options now that you've screwed up so bad. Good luck, man. I mean, you didn't know ahead of time, but no woman is going to have an easy time now that you've slept with a co-worker. If you want to work this out, you need to put in a lot of effort. Yeah, some pretty sound advice there, I'd say. Opie gives a mini update in the comments. Thank you everyone for listening. I've tried to speak to my wife this evening. I asked her for a walk. She's not fine with what happened. She started crying immediately when I tried talking to her. She said that she didn't know if she'll ever forget or forgive. What surprised me is that she seemed to put the blame on herself. She said it was all her fault because she started this whole separation idea, and then agreed to me sleeping with others like she'd tricked me somehow, and now she wasn't fine with what she'd agreed upon. She apologized and said that she knew she was being unfair, but that she couldn't help how she felt now. I tried to explain that it wasn't her fault at all, but I'm not sure she's convinced, because she keeps saying that it was all her fault, and that she is being unfair. I don't know what to do. I can't see her broken like this. Yeah, it's almost like she knew that him sleeping with someone else would definitely upset her, but she kind of just said that anyway to give him some more freedom, I don't know. But yeah, now she's definitely regretting saying that. Let's go to the last update. She said that she couldn't do this anymore, and she apologized because she believes that it was all her doing, because she felt like she tricked me and gave me permission that she then couldn't keep, and now everything is ruined because of her, and that I had all the reasons to hate her. But I don't hate her. I hate myself very much, but I would never hate her. She is the love of my life, and I regret everything, including the break and the small stupid stuff that made us fight and take that break. She moved into a hotel. We decided to wait about telling our families until after the holidays, because our broken hearts are enough. We don't need to break their hearts too. I just don't know what to do. I've lost everything. This is my update for you who asked. I'm sure you'll find it satisfactory, given the amount of hate you've given me on my original post. Oh man, pretty bleak ending there. But yeah, it seemed as though the moment he told her that he slept with another woman, it was kind of inevitable. I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Alright, let's move on to the next story. Okay, this next one's from Am I the A-hole? It was written by a now deleted account, and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my ex that his children are not my problem? I, a 34-year-old woman, have a 10-year-old daughter with my ex. We separated 5 years ago because he impregnated another woman. He spends weekends with our daughter. Recently, my daughter has been expressing that her dad's stepson is bullying her and her dad isn't intervening. My ex's stepson is 15 years old, so I was taken aback when she told me that he would physically harm her, such as hitting, kicking, and even pushing her down the stairs. She also mentioned that her half-sister keeps taking her belongings. I confronted my ex after she relayed all of this to me. He dismissed it as kids being kids and suggested that our daughter should get over it. He also said his other children require more attention, and if our daughter can't cope with that, she shouldn't come over to his house. In response, I expressed my frustration, stating that I wasn't concerned about his other children's issues. He should stop neglecting our daughter's well-being. He then ended the call abruptly. Shortly after, his wife sent me a lengthy text, accusing me of being an antagonist for stating that her kids aren't my responsibility. P.S. His children do not have any special needs or disabilities. So, am I the a-hole for saying my ex's kids aren't my responsibility? In the comments, your daughter is 10. If she doesn't want to go to her father's home, please seek full custody. A 15-year-old hurting her isn't okay. Not the a-hole. Please speak to a lawyer about getting full custody and protecting your daughter from the physically and emotionally abusive a-holes. Every parent's priority is always their kids first, which decent people can do without justifying their kids' abusive behaviour, like your ex and his wife. Standing up for your kids' well-being makes you a good parent, not the a-hole. I would not send my 10-year-old anywhere with the expectation that 2 kids, let alone a 15-year-old boy, were going to hit and bully them. I would likely be laying hands on that 15-year-old's father for sure, and possibly his punk-ass kid too if it didn't get resolved after the first time I talked nice to them. Opie replies, The thing is, if I knew what was going on, I would not have let my daughter go to his house in the first place. I forgot to mention that she hadn't told me this until I found a bruise on her arm. I then asked her to explain, and she just told me what happened. Yeah, I definitely find myself agreeing with the comments here. Let's go to the first update. Thank you for all the advice I've been receiving. I talked to my daughter about not going to her dad's anymore. She expressed that she still wants to see him because she loves him, but she feels like he doesn't love her. This deeply upset me, as no 10-year-old should feel that way. I texted my ex, stating that if he wants to see our daughter, he should take her away from his house. Alternatively, if he prefers not to see her, I will take this matter to court and file for full custody. He responded by saying he doesn't care and that I can remove his parental rights, as he has his real children with him. Additionally, I mentioned that I'll be pressing charges against his stepson. He simply ignored that text, so I'm taking legal action and have sent the screenshot to my friend, who is a lawyer. I'll provide further updates once everything is resolved. Wow, this dad is a prick. Imagine abandoning your daughter when she's 10, and he's probably doing it all out of spite to his ex. Even though he has no reason to be mad at her, he's the one who cheated. God, people like this frustrate me. Let's go to the next update. So a lot has been going on for the past few days. I've talked to my lawyer. She said my ex might twist it into me being the bad person since I blew up on him, but she did say if he did, he would just embarrass himself in court. I also asked my daughter if her being abused by her stepbrother was racially motivated, since my daughter is mixed. I'm black and my ex is white, and so is his new family. She at first didn't understand until I explained, and she said her stepbrother called her the N-word. She doesn't know what that means, and that's why she didn't think it was important. After she told me this, I put her to bed and texted my ex asking if he knows what his stepson said about our daughter. He said, yeah, he says a little racist things, but it's not relevant. After the text, I know I was going to press charges on his stepson. I was debating whether or not I should do it or not, but after what she told me, I knew what I was going to do. I called my lawyer again and explained everything, and now we're waiting for a court date. By the way, my ex has been blowing up my phone. He probably got the court papers. Thanks for all the support. I don't think I'm allowed to post anything about the case, so I might update once the case is over. Okay, case is over, so let's go to the final update. So, a lot has been going on, but I'm happy to announce that I'm getting full custody of my daughter. My ex is paying more child support than before, and my daughter has been going to therapy. She's been getting better and is a lot happier now. We even got some of her stuff back that was previously taken by her half-sister. Thank you all for the amazing advice I've received, but apart from all the good news, there is an update. I had a sit down with my ex, and it went horribly. He kept asking why I was taking his daughter from him, and he ended up yelling at me. Thank God we were in a public place. I also found out through a friend that my ex is bipolar. To me, it explains a lot, apart from the sit-down. He has been going crazy. He shows up at our daughter's school demanding he get her back, and then he'll text me saying he's glad that I got full custody of her. I'm just confused, but our lives are getting better. That's all. I wish you all an early Merry Christmas. Thank you again. Wow, yeah, bipolar, that probably explains a little bit. But ultimately, the daughter's the big victim in all of this, and I feel for her. What about you guys? Let me know in the comments. I discovered that my boyfriend is cheating after buying him an expensive Christmas gift. I, female 25, discovered that my ex-boyfriend, male 26, had been cheating on me for 5 months. I was really devastated and felt a lot of rage inside me, especially after buying him a new PlayStation 5 since he wanted one but couldn't afford it. I was saving up a lot of money to buy him the console with some games. We've been dating for 3 years and living together for 1.5 years. I immediately kicked him out after his side girl messaged me, apologizing not knowing that he had a girlfriend. I didn't believe her because I trusted my boyfriend a lot, but she came with receipts. There were a lot of messages where he flirted with her and sent nudes. I was disgusted. Really disgusted. The worst part is when I confronted him. He didn't even try to deny it and called me boring. He insulted me a lot, saying I was no fun and he deserves better. I was really enraged, and for the first time I slapped him. He was shocked, and so was I. But I was never violent with him and always tried to solve things quietly, but he made my blood boil. I started screaming at him that he doesn't do anything around here and never paid rent because he's a lazy, jobless piece of crap who can't even bother looking for a decent job. At one point I mentioned how he'll never get the PS5 that I bought and returned it soon to the store. He looked like a deer in headlights. That idiot, he immediately changed his attitude and acted sorry, started apologizing and crying, saying he never meant to cheat and promised he would make it up to me. He's a disgusting pig. He never cared for my feelings. He only cared when I mentioned something he wanted. Such hypocrisy. I wasted no time and kicked him out. He's still sending me a lot of texts filled with apologies and even an ugly photo of him crying. I told him to not waste his time because he won't get the PS5. We're done. Then I blocked him. I won't take the PS5. I already have one, but I remembered that my parents were planning on buying it for my little brother. The plan was going to be them buying the PS5, and I'll buy the games for it with an extra PS Store gift card, but looks like I'll give my parents a call and tell them there's a change in our plans for my brother's gift. Honestly, sounds like OP's doing all the right things here. Let's go to the comments. Your little brother is going to be so excited though. Let me guess, when you previously asked him to get a job and contribute to the household, he called you a gold digger. Good for you for not taking his gaslighting and BS any longer. I'm sure you've figured out by now that he was never going to contribute and intended to use you for a free ride while he had his fun. You're so well rid of him. Best Christmas gift you could give yourself. OP replies, he actually called me controlling. We fought a lot about it, but this was my first time showing a serious reaction to it. Ha ha ha, he can get bent. Good on you. You should tell the other girl what a lazy, jobless POS he is. Also, happy holidays to you and your family. I hope your brother enjoys the new PS5 that your ex is not getting. Yeah, 100%. Sounds like a freeloader. Kick him to the curb. Let's go to the update. Hello everyone, I'm back with an update. First, I wanted to thank all of the people who commented and shared some of their experiences with me. I really appreciate it. Today was amazing. I celebrated Christmas with my family, my parents and little brother. My parents cooked the best food, so I ate well after not having an appetite for a few days. It was wonderful. As for my parents' agreement about the gift, we agreed on something. I'll gift the PS5 and games to my brother, and my parents bought an Oculus for my brother's new PS5 and other accessories for the console. When the time came for presents, I was shocked to learn that my brother got me an expensive gift. He got me some makeup from Sephora and a gift card. My parents then informed me that my brother was saving for my gift since the beginning of the year. I cried. I literally started bawling my eyes out, then I gave him a big hug. My baby. I thanked him a lot for the gift and said that I loved it. When he opened my parents' present, he was really confused and stated that he doesn't have a PS5 for this Oculus. I told him to open my gift, and when he opened it, he started crying and immediately hugged me. I don't know what came over me, and I started crying with him. I really, really love my brother. He's a sweet little boy and a good-behaved kid. He's 12, by the way. That's why he deserved every gift he got. It was expensive, yes, but it was worth every penny to see him happy. After we all opened our gifts, I helped him set up the PS5 in his room and played some games together. Suddenly, he tells me that he loves me and I'm the best big sister in the world. For the third time, I started crying. Probably because I'm on my period and my hormones are not making it any better. So yeah, there you have it. I had the best Christmas with my family, and seeing my brother so happy was worth the heartbreak I went through. As for my garbage ex, he's still making new accounts on Instagram to apologise. I told him to F off, and I know that he's only apologising because he wants the PS5, not because he's feeling guilty. I mentioned that I gave it to someone who deserves it way more than he does. He started cursing at me, and I said if he didn't leave me alone, I'll report him to the police for harassment. He stopped after that, and I've never heard from him ever since. So that's all for the update. Happy holidays, everyone. Alrighty, and that's the end of that one. Sounds like the boyfriend cheating was actually kind of a blessing in disguise. It finally gave OP the drive to actually kick him out. And just look at all the good things that happened because of it. Anyway, give me your thoughts about that one, and we'll move on to our next story. Okay, we're over on relationship advice. This one was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, How do I, 24 male, get my dad, 52, to realise his wife, 38, is not my mum and to quit pressing a relationship? My mum passed when I was 14. I was always closer with her than my dad, so I took it very hard and still missed her every day. My dad moved on extremely quickly. I'm talking about 1.5 months later, and he was openly dating his current wife. I suspect he was cheating on my mum. She moved in 4 months after my mum's death. Then, 9 months after her death, they announced their engagement on my birthday as one of my gifts. I obviously didn't take it well. I made a scene, dumped the cake they got me, and walked out. I disappeared for a few days until they were about to put out a missing persons and runaway report. I was forced to go back. They tried to get rid of all the evidence of my mum, pictures, personal effects, memories, and others. I kept what I could and hid some others. They wouldn't let me celebrate her birthday or anything to do with my mum. They tried to force me to call her, the dad's wife, Mum. I never did. They would ignore me when I called her by her name. She would introduce herself as my mum. I would correct her every time. It got to the point that I stopped talking to her unless absolutely necessary or if I was correcting her. These talks were usually one-word answers. My dad got angry every time I didn't call her mum, used her first name, or introduced her as my dad's wife. I once spent 2 weeks not talking to either of them when I was 16 because I was ruining their family dynamic. Until I can be a part of the family, there was nothing to say or do as one. They caved at about the 15th day of no communication and interaction. I turned 18 and left for uni and went extremely low contact and didn't go back. When I was 21, I got engaged to my fiancée. She knows about my relationship with my dad and his wife. She respects it and is on my side. When they found out, my dad and his wife had a fit. They didn't know I was seeing anyone. My dad's wife posted on social media saying she was excited that her son, me, was getting married with a bunch of other things, saying she can't wait until she becomes a grandma. I made a short post saying I'm not and never was her son, and she won't be a grandma to any future kids. My dad got mad, saying I was disrespecting my mother and embarrassing her. I asked who we were talking about because my only mother was my biological mum who gave me life. And at this point, I lost both of my parents on that day when I was 14. That was 3 years ago, and we went back to low and no contact, but my wife is about 8 months pregnant. They showed up to my house. I never gave them my address. They wanted to talk and meet my wife. I didn't let them in and said to turn around and go back to where they came from. But apparently they decided they wanted to move to my city and state to be closer and repair the relationship between us. She said she missed her son and wanted to be a better mum and grandma. I called them delusional and told them to leave and slammed the door. They bought a house about 5 minutes away from us. This has all been way too much for me, and my therapist wants me to let them in, but I would rather cut all contact. It wouldn't be so bad if they would just stop trying to replace my mum and act like she never existed. I honestly don't know much about my dad's wife. I don't even know if I know who my dad is anymore. My wife is struggling to support me emotionally and doesn't know how to help. Please, internet strangers, how do I convince my dad and my dad's wife that she is not and will never be my mum? Edit to add, about my therapist, he said I should try to express my true feelings towards them in a non-hostile and threatening manner. Do it in a way that is constructive but gets to the point. Learn more about my dad and his wife and get to the root of who they are and how they feel about the situation. But I'm going to find a better therapist. Geez, either way, it sounds like Opie's got some unresolved conflicts with his dad. I would say you got to figure those out, but it seems like Opie's got their mind made up. I'm not saying Opie's attitude isn't justified or anything, because it absolutely is, but yeah, there's a bit to sort through here. Let's see what the comments think. Scorched earth may be the only way. There seems to be no reasoning with them. They're trying to break you. They believe that if they do not let up, you will eventually cave. They want their perfect little lie of a life and seem to be willing to do just about anything to get it. By moving so close, they plan on stalking you, your wife, and your children. Suddenly they'll be at the same store at the same time and get to meet your kids, even though you've denied them that by any normal route. They may show up at daycares, at school events, birthdays, holidays, and anything they think they can manage to get access to keep up their lie. They do not seem to care about you or your family, just the idea of you as it fits into their fake world. If they truly cared, it never would have gotten this far. They are delusional and will not stop unless forced. Telling them flat out any time they come close to you and your family, including out and about, you'll call the police for stalking and harassment until you're granted a restraining order for both of them. May get it across. You would have to be willing to follow it through. But if they moved 5 minutes away on a delusion, it may not be enough, or it may take a while of their stalking and a sympathetic judge to get an order to keep them away. Also, look into your state's grandparents' rights laws, just to make sure they cannot try to sue to force you to let them see any children. Usually, I think a pre-existing relationship is required, but it never hurts to dig just to make sure they cannot get it, or they cannot fake it somehow to get what they want. If you truly want to hide, it may be hard. They may have been able to track you via public records if someone did not tell them. It would take buying a house under something like an LLC and never telling anyone that may have a link to her where you moved to. I hope I'm wrong and something finally clicks and they leave you alone. I wish you and yours the best. I cannot imagine the stress you're having to go through and may go through in the future. I'd ask him, since it was apparently so easy for him to erase your mum from his life after she died, why can't he do the same for you? Pretend you're dead because he's dead to you. Tell him to have another kid. He can replace the one he's lost, just like he did with Mum. Of course, that's twisting the knife, but that's exactly what he did. I wouldn't let him forget it. Of course, that doesn't really help you move on emotionally. A restraining order might help, though. I went through something similar. My mum passed away when I was 13. Dad started dating one of her friends within a month. My grandfather said he didn't even wait for her body to get cold, that's how fast he moved on, and ended up marrying my mum's older boss. I'm 40 now and haven't seen or spoken to my father since I was 26 or so. Best decision I made. In the end, you set who you want to be in contact with and who you don't. Stand firm and don't give in. I would also find another therapist who understands your situation. Your father and his wife's actions sound insane. Just to move to be closer without reconnecting slowly and properly is a red flag to me. Be careful, but I would keep my distance and possibly even look into a restraining order if they keep coming around. Your therapist is completely disregarding the issue here. Attempts to replace your birth mother and bullying you emotionally to achieve this. Get another therapist. Contact a lawyer. You can prove no contact and unwanted behaviour like turning up unannounced and buying property near you. This is stalking, and you can get a restraining order. Okay, let's go to an update. Long update. Hello all. Thanks for your comments and feedback. I did read them all. I couldn't reply for some reason. Also, for those who said I must be fake because of a lack of replying and updates, the post got so much attention that it was locked in 24 hours. I do have a life with work and an 8-month pregnant queen that I have the privilege of calling my wife that took priority. To answer some questions and to clarify, my wife, me, and our unborn child are doing good overall. My wife is over being pregnant at this point. Our child should be here in the coming weeks. I did find a new therapist. I called to cancel the rest of my appointments on the books, and he did not take that well, so I've put in a complaint. I met with my new one, and I like her a lot better. I feel like I'm actually being heard, and actually getting the help I needed. I want to make this clear. I'm 24. My dad's wife is 38, 14 years older than me. My dad is 52, 14 years older than his wife, so when she entered my life, I was 14 and she was 28. There were also theories about how my dad might have had something to do with my mum's death. That is not the case, but I still believe they were together before she passed. I'm investing in a security system, but it will be a few weeks until they can install it. But for now, we'll have a doorbell cam and some cheaper cameras. Social media. Since the post about her being excited about being a grandma, how my wife and I are getting engaged, we have locked down all social media. My wife and I are not active on any platforms anymore, except for messaging or sharing pictures. We found the leak as well. It was my brother-in-law, wife's sister's husband. We had a family dinner where we had planned on working on the birthing plan. Brother-in-law was insistent on being there, which was odd as he was not part of it to begin with. While we were waiting for my mother-in-law to get home, I shared what happened between my dad and how it made me and my wife feel. Brother-in-law got visibly uncomfortable. When we called him out on it, he denied it, but it was obvious. Sister-in-law called him out, and he broke down. He said he'd been talking with them because we need all the family support we can get, and they should know their grandbaby. This caused an argument. It ended with sister-in-law moving out and staying with us. They have no kids and had some issues. I think it's over for them. I'll never trust him. Our birthing plan has been locked down and secure, made a day later with our brother-in-law. But we have some just in case of crazy showing up plans. Everyone who needs to know the plan and details know. Now, it is surprisingly hard to get a protection order. Where I live, it is heavily dependent on violence or physical contact. Technically, what they've done is not against the law yet. They are perceived as no real danger at this time, since there were no threats made, and they left when asked to. They have free will to move wherever they want. Also, since a family member gave another family member my address, it's fair game. In regards to grandparents' rights, it's only when my wife and I have lost custody or are unable to care for them, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law will be taking on that role if needed. My wife and I are not in a position to move. We just bought our house when interest rates were low, and my in-laws helped with the down payment. It's nothing massive, but it's a home and perfect for our starter family. My dad and his wife are unable and shouldn't have kids. I don't know from what side made it impossible, so that may be why the constant pressure's up. I did write my dad a letter summing up why I want no contact, how I feel about what they did, and how his wife is not my mum and never will be. If I feel like giving them a chance, it's on my and my family's terms. Specified that my family is me, my wife, and any possible children moving forward. They are not to talk to my wife or I at any time unless it's through our lawyer. He can decide what information to pass on. They are not welcome around us at any point, including our house, school, daycare, social gatherings, birthdays, Christmas, barbecues, etc. As well as in public, we are strangers. Keep space and act like we don't exist. If they break this, they'll get a follow-up letter, up to and including a protection order. The letter was quite long. Our lawyer looked it over, and my wife and I signed it. Then he signed it as well, as it's being notarized. And then we made legal copies for all of our records. My lawyer went with a private delivery service and hand-delivered it to him with a signature of received goods, plus video evidence as well. So far, so good on that end. I'm now focused on my wife and soon-to-be child. I hope I'm ready. I know how not to be a father, so there's that. Thanks all for your input. Is there anything else I should do or think of to protect my family? I don't know, to me sounds like Opie's got all the bases covered so far. Let's see how it turns out. Next update 6 months later. Hello, it's been a while. Some people wanted updates. In the weeks leading up to my wife giving birth, things were stressful. I ended up having my first panic attack. That was not fun. My wife helped me through that one. Brother-in-law tried to apologise and get back with my sister-in-law, but effed that up by trying to explain himself again on how he was in the right by reconnecting my parents and my family. After that, their divorce has been moving quickly. My wife giving birth was an amazing experience, for me. The moment I held my child for the first time amazed me. How can I love something so tiny and who I just met so much, so quickly? Both baby and my wife are doing really well. My wife started saying she feels like a cow. I'm not sure how to make her stop, but she keeps randomly mooing at me. My dad and his wife tried to show up at the hospital. Still not sure how they found us or knew where we were, but staff blocked them and covered for us. Like a bunch of you said, we would start running into them randomly around town, mainly grocery and shopping stores. Even if I drove out of my way, we would sometimes bump into one or both of them. Law enforcement still says they're not doing anything against the law and don't seem dangerous or malicious. We did our best to ignore them or stay home or have a family member get the items. My therapist has sure earned her paycheck for the last few months. My lawyer is trying their best, but the laws I feel are against us. Innocent until proven guilty, or in this case, nothing is dangerous until after it is. Or, hurry up and wait until something bad happens, then we might do something. It's super frustrating. We moved. Now I never want to do that again. Good family helps, but with a newborn and crazy people around, it was stressful. I know it doesn't sound possible, and I'm still in disbelief, but my in-laws are amazing and got us in contact with a friend of theirs. Long story short, these friends wanted to downsize since all of their kids moved out, told in-laws and brought them over. We ended up coming up with a really good deal. Our new home is bigger, on more land, but needs a lot of work, still baby-friendly. It is old and outdated, but we've been making it ours. We are not rich by any stretch of the imagination. We have a good network around us. I'm also doing 99% of the work to the house myself. Sister-in-law moved in and helped us make it possible. Since moving, we have not seen my dad or his wife. That was until about 2 weeks ago. I was going to update and did write all of the above then, since my lawyer contacted me saying my dad reached out and wanted to talk. I tried to say hard pass, but they advised me by saying, I think it would be in your best interest. We set up a date and time in public. 3 days later, at a coffee shop, we met up. Even though we were early, they were waiting for us. It was just my wife and I, also a paralegal from my lawyer's office undercover. I could see the disappointment in their eyes that our child did not come with us. It started awkward AF. They started some BS small talk, but I just said, "What do you want?" Well, my dad's health is not well and is going downhill steadily. May have 2-ish years at most. They showed scans, doctor's notes, tests, and other items to prove it. I was quiet the entire time they talked, and all I could think about is, that sucks for him. It was like getting news that someone you knew of when you were a child died, or is sick, like a neighbour or an old babysitter. For me, no real emotions or feelings because I feel like I didn't have a real connection with them. My wife knew I was irritated and tried to silently calm me down. When they were done, I said something to the effect of, "I'm sorry this happened to you. I hope you get better." Then I got up to walk out. His wife opened her mouth and said something like, "That's it? That's all you have to say? You owe it to him to..." I didn't let her finish and went off on them. I said everything that I'd been saying in my head for years. A practiced monologue I started when I was a teen. Highlights include, but are not limited to, how he owed me more than anything, how he ruined any type of relationship the moment he started thinking with his dick, when he tried to erase my real and only mum. Neglect, abuse, over-punishment, the works. Then I finished with my real mother, died when I was 14. Pretend I did as well because that is when he, my dad, became dead to me. Now, looking back, I find it in a way funny that my 5'4" wife was holding back a 6'3", 200+ guy, but they kinda looked like fish opening and closing their mouth. My wife then escorted me away. When we got to the car, I had my second panic attack, but since then things have been quiet, but still fresh. I'm struggling, but working through it. When my wife notices me zoning, she just hands me our child, and things get better. Sorry for the long read if you're still here. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and may your life be blessed. Wow, what a roller coaster. Yeah, and that's the end of that one, guys. Gee, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this one down below. Let me know in the comments. I don't know, maybe Opie's outburst there could be cathartic in a way. I mean, he did say he was holding it in since he was a teenager, and now it's off his chest. Maybe that's all he needs. Hell hath no fury like me scorned. This story starts 31 years ago, but the revenge part was pure serendipity that began 2 years ago. I'm going to shorten some, or most parts, because it's a crazy ride, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you all have. I learned a F-ton on this journey, and part of the reason for this write-up is to share that with others. The beginning. In 1990, when I was just out of middle school and my sister was still in elementary, my dad met his third wife at the only gas station in our town. They soon moved in together, and my dad abandoned us in our basement apartment to live in a shanty houseboat that didn't run to live with her. He would show up every other week and give me $40 for groceries. Eventually, someone figured out the situation and called my mum. We went to live with her, which was, believe it or not, worse. My dad and his shanty wife got married in 1991. Not long after, she called me and told me my dad's brain tumour had returned. It hadn't, and that he couldn't handle the stress of being around us, that the only people he could bear to be around was her and her son, Shorty, who was my age. When I called my dad to ask if this was true, he said it wasn't, and he just couldn't believe that she would say that to begin with. That was one of our last conversations, until 2 years ago. The middle. There's not much in this part. I worked my way through college, living in my car from time to time. My dad and I were no contact, but I heard from family that he'd bought a house and put his son through some vocational classes. When my grandmother died, Shorty and shanty wife showed up in a truck and took all the furniture and anything else that wasn't tied down or already gone. Eventually, I went no contact with my dad's side of the family. I struggled for years, decades really, but I made it, and I have a great job and a good family now. The best revenge is living well, right? The pre-end warm-up. 2 years ago, October 2019, I got a call from my dad's brother, Alan. He told me my dad was in a nursing home in another state. Great. And I needed to go see him because he needed my help. What the F? Shorty had ghosted him. Ha. The nursing home, coincidentally, was about 20 minutes from my house, and I saw an opportunity, and I went. The reunion was underwhelming. I didn't want to make amends, but I did want to hear how he wound up dumped and all alone in another state, and it was a really, really good story. Shanty wife got lung cancer and put my dad in a nursing home before she died in 2017. She suffered, and I was happy to hear it, but sad it wasn't ass cancer. Shorty became his power of attorney, POA, when she died, and had been visiting my dad, living in my dad's house with his 2 children, and taking care of my dad's affairs since his mum died. But now he was MIA, and my dad was worried about him. He asked me to drive the hour and a half to his house to check on everything. That's all he wanted. He never even asked me how I'd been. I agreed to go. I think out of morbid curiosity. I'd never even been to my dad's house. I did want to see where he lived with his, quote, real family for 30 years. I wanted to see what could have been my life. It was 50 shades of frickin' awful. The grass hadn't been cut all summer. You couldn't get to the front door for the overgrowth. There were 3 pickup trucks in the yard. 2 were full of trash. Cabs and beds and back seats, just trash. Mail, clothes, paper, shoes, garbage bags. I couldn't understand it. My dad's handicapped modified SUV was on 4 flats and full of garbage too. I didn't have a key, so I just walked around. From what windows I could look through, the inside was in shambles and hoarded to hell. On the front and carport doors were dozens of notices from the city that they were going to condemn the place. The carport was also hoarded. Boxes and boxes stacked on each other, most rotting from the rain. The yard was full of garbage. Broken Christmas ornaments, more shoes, rusted tools, old toys. There was a letter in the mailbox notifying him that since the house was abandoned, mail would not be delivered anymore. That night I googled powers of attorney and how to use them. I went back the next day and showed my bed-bound dad the pictures on my phone. He vowed to beat Shorty's ass, then asked me to help more. I told him I would, but he'd have to sign power of attorney over to me. All of it durable, financial and medical. If he didn't, he could figure this crap out by himself. He agreed, so I set about finding a lawyer who would drive to another state and do the paperwork in the nursing home. Bless that lawyer for being so good at his job, because all I did was tell him what I knew, and he put together a beautifully bulletproof POA. It was full of stuff I didn't even know I would need. He also filed the paperwork to revoke Shorty's POA, and now I'm unstoppable. We're from a small rural town, and it's the kind of creepy landlocked place that no matter how long you've been gone or how far away you've been, when you go back, you'll see someone you know. Even if you don't know you know them. It's like playing 7 degrees of everybody, all the time. It's suffocating, but it can also be helpful. The beginning of the end. I got to work the next morning. I didn't know how scorched the earth would be when I finished, and I didn't want Shorty or anyone from his prolific inbred family trying to find me, so I made sure nothing I did had my name on it. I opened a Google account for my dad and got a Google number. I opened a PO box for him in his town. I put in a mail forwarding notice. I pulled his credit report. I took the POA to my dad's small town bank, changed the address on his accounts, and got new account numbers. I requested copies of every transaction back to the day Shanty wife had died, about 13 months worth. I had to go to the main branch 2 hours from my house the next day to pick the records up. I sat in the lobby all afternoon, going through the account. I cornered a service rep and got a crash caught in his debits and deposits. This is when I figured out the extent of Shorty's staggering stupidity. My dad got about $5,000 a month in disability and social security every month. Twice a week, Shorty was going into a branch and withdrawing cash, all of the cash, for 13 months, and every time he did it, as the POA, he had to sign a form stating that he was acting on behalf of my dad, and that form was notarized by the bank. I went through every withdrawal and got the bank to confirm that every one of them was made by Shorty. Then I went to the house and called a locksmith. I knew it was bad, but I had no idea what was waiting for me there. He got the first door open, and the stench rolled out like a fog bank. We both gagged. 2 locks later, I was so embarrassed by what he had to see and smell. I gave him a $60 tip. And, with his shiny new keys in hand, I called the cops. I told them I was POA for my dad, was checking on his house, and there were 3 vehicles there that didn't belong to him. He asked me if I knew who they belonged to. I said no, and I wanted them towed. He told me to call a tow company, and he would meet them there. They showed up with 2 wreckers. The tow truck guy got out and asked me for a signature. I only signed my first name. As I was signing, he asked, "Do you know Shorty?" Running on pure hatred at this point, I surprised myself. "Do you?" I asked. He said he did, and that, quote, "he's an a-hole." I responded, "He might be. Hey, can you do me a favor? If you see him, will you tell him I'm coming for him?" His bravado evaporated. He knows a crazy bee when he sees one. They towed the trucks. When everyone was gone, I opened the door in the carport to peek in. The sun was going down, and it was dark in the house. I heard something faint, and after some seconds realized it was the roaches and the rats doing their roach and rat stuff. I could smell it all in my hair. I sat on the carport steps and watched the sun go down. I was mad, just so frickin' cosmically livid that 72 hours was all it took to dissolve 3 decades, and here I was, stinking and listening to the rats and cleaning everyone else's crap up, taking time away from my family, and for what? I had a coming to Jesus with myself. I could either bow out now or double down, and the thing is, I'm tenacious, to a goddamn fault. I had to be to survive, and this was a bone I couldn't put down. The thought of Shorty's life being upended, his only source of income, probably, disappearing literally overnight, and my dad having to hear, second-hand from me, that he's broke and alone, made me absolutely giddy. I desperately wanted them both to lose what they had left, so I decided I was going to triple dog down. That night, I googled restraining orders. And it was surprisingly easy to get one. I went to the courthouse in my hometown, went to the clerk's office, and told her I needed a restraining order. I filled the form in at the rickety little table while I was there. I wasn't prepared to see a judge that day, but she took the form and said, "Okay, I'll see if the judge is still here." That kind of scared me. She took me to his chambers, and as I was waiting, I looked around and saw he had certificates of appreciation hanging up from various veterans groups. Then I wiped my palms and thought, fish in a frickin' barrel. He asked about my dad's stint in the Marines and about the DoD office logo on my sweater. I'm a contractor. He read my form and granted the temporary order. I would have to go back for the permanent one, where Shorty would be able to argue against it. Then I went home and Googled biohazard companies and elder abuse statutes in my state. I hired a biohazard company to shovel all the crap out of the house for $7,000. I would have paid double. They found my dad's mummified dog under some pizza boxes in the master bedroom. They sent me pictures and salvaged some papers. Shorty was served during this time, and a hearing was set. I got to work collecting and documenting crap. I made pictures and spreadsheets and timelines with cross-references because, effort, now they had my full attention. The paid versions of Truthfinder and Trello seriously got me through all of this. In my spare time, I went to the nursing home and gave my dad 8x10 copies of the pictures of his dead dog from every angle. Before court, I went to the police station nearby and told them I wanted to report an elder abuse crime. A white-collar detective came out and told me it was a domestic matter and that since Shorty had been POA, everything he had done was legal. And this was the day I got to teach a small-town detective about the fiduciary responsibilities of a POA. Thanks, Google. I handed him a copy of the statute with the applicable sections highlighted. Then I handed him a thick folder with bank statements, pictures of the haunted house and dead dog, a copy of my dad's credit report that showed he was tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and a spreadsheet listing every cash withdrawal with a running total of the stolen amounts. The grand total was just over $130,000 in cash. That's not including the lost value of the house or the credit cards he opened and used. I told him he could keep that folder since it wasn't the only one I had. Then I told him I would wait for a case number, and I sat down. He came back about 30 minutes later and apologised, said I had a case, and gave me a case number. Then I headed over to the courthouse. This is the end. There were other people there, and I had to wait my turn. And while I was waiting, that stupid mother effer schlepped his sloppy ass into the courtroom by himself, and obviously, literally, non-metaphorically, dirty. His shoes were untied, and that turned my giggle box over. Then it was our turn and we stood up. The same judge asked me some questions, asked him some questions, and asked me if I had any proof. I had a very thick folder of it. The judge asked me if I'd gone to the police. Well, yes sir, I have. Do you have a case number? As a matter of fact. The order was granted, permanently and for life, but not before the judge halted proceedings and told Shorty he needed a lawyer. Someone told me that the courthouse would have a copy of my dad's DD-214, the discharge papers, so while I was there, I got a copy of those, because why not? I also used my POA to take Shanty Wife off the deed to the house. That way, if my dad died and it went into probate, Shorty had no immediate claim. I also went and got copies of my dad's birth certificate and Shanty Wife's death certificate. Technically, stepchildren can't request that info, but the clerk who waited on me recognised my dad's name and told me she lost her virginity to my Uncle Alan in the 60s and went to my grandparents' funeral, so I got all the forms I wanted. Shanty Wife left my dad $50,000 in life insurance. About $35,000 of that was left since Shorty was spending my dad's money and not his mum's. So I opened an Ally account and transferred every penny over. Then I set up recurring transfers for the monthly deposits. At any given time, there was no more than $100 in his account. I also found a house flipper that paid me enough for the house to pay off his mortgage. That's the thing about probate. There's nothing to fight over if there's nothing there. And I made sure there was frickin' nothing there. My dad died thinking he still owned a house. Speaking of which, this is about the time I found my dad's life insurance policies. They were up to date and Shanty Wife was the beneficiary. My POA didn't allow me to change beneficiaries, but it allowed me to assign them. And since Shanty Wife was dead, there was technically no beneficiary. This is where the death certificates came in handy. I assigned my sister and me as beneficiaries. Irrevocable too, which means that the only way they can change is for my dad and me and my sister to agree to it. I kept my dad in the dark about all of this. The only thing he ever really knew about was the restraining order and his dead dog. I found out that he had purchased the gravesite next to Shanty Wife and wanted to be buried next to her. That was just never going to frickin' happen. I googled national cemeteries and found out he qualified to be in one since he was a disabled Vietnam-era veteran, so I arranged for that instead. All the cherries on top. My dad died in June this year, and I was there. He's buried in a national cemetery far away where no one will ever go visit him. The only obituary I ran was on the funeral home's website, and that's only for insurance purposes. I wrote it as vague as possible. There was no service. His urn is purple, the colour he hated most. I got a call in August from the prosecutor's office in my hometown. The lady on the other end is married to my first cousin because of course she is. That's just how it frickin' works here. Shorty was arrested just after midnight on July the 1st, was still in jail, and had been arraigned on felony elder abuse charges. He's facing 10 years in prison. She told me not to expect the trial anytime soon, as it can take up to 3 years for that to happen. I told her that was awesome since the uncertainty will hopefully haunt him, and after all that, he's still got prison to look forward to. He lost his kids, he lost his dad, I'm spending his mum's cancer money, he lost his free house and trucks, he has no credit and will never be able to get any sort of decent job and will hopefully for a long time not be able to find a decent place to live. And I sleep like a frickin' baby. Holy crap, this is some next level revenge, and well written too. I mean, we only heard a bit of the history, but I'm just gonna assume that it's all justified. Let's look at some comments. I had a mother who was a piece of work. Last thing she told me was that she had her whole life planned out. Quote, then I had you. I left ASAP and never looked back. Last I heard, I have a couple cousins and one uncle still alive on her side of the family. Everyone else is gone and I can't seem to shed a tear over it. They were all like the Hatfields and McCoys, except the lines of war constantly changed. Between that and my mother, I've been better off, and that includes being homeless a couple times. I wish I could have pulled off something like this though. There was a house that I guess I was partial heir to, and supposedly some cash from someone else. But the drug addict uncle gutted the house and didn't pay taxes on it, and I'm sure he blew the cash on whatever he could get his high on. It's honestly not worth the damage to my mental health to deal with it all. That was so long and satisfying, I feel like I need a cigarette. Awesome job scorching that earth. You raised yourself quite beautifully. Well done. Oh my god. About 2 minutes in, I stopped, made a cocktail, fed the pets, and settled in for a good read. This is the bones of a frickin' bestseller. Make it happen. Can't disagree with that. Let's go to an update. 2 years later. Hell hath no fury like me scorned. Part 2. Felony Boogaloo. Hello. A couple of years ago I posted a revenge story involving my stepmother, Shanty wife, my stepbrother Shorty, and my dad, who is now resting in a purple urn. In case you missed it, you can read it here. Well, I finally have an update. To recap, Shorty, my stepbrother, was my dad's power of attorney while he was sick and had heinously abused his position, stealing a very large sum of money. When I got involved, I got a restraining order against Shorty, filed charges, took over my dad's care, and exacted some sweet revenge in the process. I was warned by the court's victim advocate, who was my first cousin, because that's how it is in that town, that bringing Shorty to trial for what he did would take a very long time. She was correct. In the meantime, I monitored Shorty's online activities. When he moved out of state, I called the court and let them know just in case it violated his bail. When he got a job as a truck driver, I called the court to let them know he was repeatedly leaving his home state just in case it violated his bail. Then, 6 months ago, I got a call from the same victim's advocate. The trial was going to be set soon, and the court wanted input from the family regarding possible plea deals and sentencing. He was indicted on felony elder abuse and was facing 15 years in prison. The advocate let me know that the family could request prison time or plea him down to work release with restitution. The upside to prison was obvious, but the downside would be that we would not likely receive restitution since he'd be perpetually poor and in prison. With work release, we would receive restitution, but he would have his freedom. Somewhat. She wanted to know which we preferred. I asked for the night to think it over. Shorty's future rested in my hands, and I wanted to savour it. What kind of god did I want to be? To decide, I needed to do some math. If he went to prison for 15 years, he would be out in half or less. 7 years is a long time, but restitution would surely take as long, if not longer, and I would get the pleasure of taking his money every month for years and years and years. I liked the thought of him working every day, toiling away in crap conditions for crap pay, and him knowing that a portion of that crap day would be for nothing. I loved the thought that I would be the reason for it. So I called her back and told her we would be okay with a plea deal to felony supervised release and restitution. I didn't hear anything further until last week, when the advocate called me again to let me know he'd accepted a deal. The deal. He pled guilty to felony elder exploitation, first degree. He received 15 years, split and suspended, which means he won't serve any jail time. 2 years will be on felony work supervision, where he'll have to call into his parole officer every day and be drug tested almost as frequently. After that, he'll be on regular probation for up to 5 years. The judge will schedule check-ins with him to ensure he's paying restitution and meeting the requirements of his work release and parole. The restitution? He has to pay back $130,539.39. He was ordered to pay $300 a month, beginning on the 1st of the 1st, 2024. My math gamble paid off. It will take him 36 years to pay that back at $300 a month. If he misses a payment, he will go to jail. I will be in his life for decades, taking back from him bit by bit what he stole. So, I think that's going to be it. I've done everything I can do, apart from being there to catch him if he violates his terms of release. Thank you for reading this tangled web of revenge. I hope it warms your heart for the holidays. Okay guys, and that's the end of that one. Wow, what an epic story. And more than likely around the time this episode comes out, he would have just started paying for it. But yeah, I genuinely really enjoyed reading that. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. Am I the a-hole for not helping a woman who had a baby with my ex-husband get survivor's benefits? My, 43, ex-husband Duke, 54, and I divorced because he habitually cheated on me. We were divorced a little over 2 years when he died in a motorcycle accident. I paid for his funeral because of my daughter, 15, and despite everything, he was her father, and I didn't want the state to bury him. That was 4 months ago, and my daughter is doing well. I applied for survivor's benefits for her shortly after his funeral and have been receiving monthly payments. Yesterday, I received a phone call from my caseworker at the Social Security office informing me that a woman called claiming that she had a 3-year-old son by my ex-husband. However, the woman had no proof the boy is actually my ex-husband's, no signed birth certificate or DNA test. The caseworker asked me if I would be willing to allow my daughter to do a DNA test to prove this child's paternity. I refused. I did the math and this child was definitely conceived while I was married to my ex. Furthermore, at the time of conception, I had gone through a very traumatic hysterectomy with major setbacks that nearly killed me. I suspect I know who this woman is, and she definitely knew my ex-husband and I were still married. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing by refusing, but I was humiliated enough by my ex when he was alive, and I feel even more embarrassed now. Wow, seems very convenient that she decides to come out of the woodwork now, doesn't it? Let's go to the comments. What a way for a kid to find out her dad cheated on her mum. Might have already been said, but if the mother knew the kid was his, why did she wait 3 years to claim support from the father? Yes, any mother who has child support entitled to them deserves every penny, but it's a huge red flag when she waits till she knows there's survivor's benefits going to his other child. I'm guessing someone told her she's missing out on a nice paycheck, and now she's wanting a piece of it. Not the a-hole. It's kind of a moot point at this late date, but she can go pound sand. You're not obligated to help her prove anything. Just a side note, in all the years I worked for SSA, I never heard of anyone calling and asking for a child to take a DNA test. Not the a-hole. You don't owe this woman anything. Let her figure things out the way she would have if your daughter was not available. She could, for example, ask his parents or siblings to do the DNA test. Yeah, some pretty good advice there. Let's go to an update. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for their comments and advice. As I stated in my edit on the original post, this happened over a year ago, and for whatever reason I wasn't allowed to post it on the thread I originally tried to. Now to the update. About a month after I found out about this little boy, I did indeed tell my daughter, who is now 17 by the way. She was shocked, as you can imagine, and very hurt by her dad's actions. I explained to her the full situation and she didn't want to do it then. She said she needed time, so that's what I gave her. Incidentally, she's been in therapy since, before, during and after the divorce. Her father and her were never close because he had a kids are to be seen and not heard mentality, which caused a lot of problems even when we were still together. The woman who had an affair with my husband was a work colleague or friend. We all worked together at the same place. We both still worked there, just in different areas. After I got the call from my caseworker, several mutual acquaintances approached me and told me that she wanted to sit down and talk with me about her problems. I thought about that for a few days and ultimately decided to meet up with her. We met at a coffee shop by our job on a Saturday. She told me that she and my ex started out as friends at first. He would give her advice on how to deal with her other two kids' dad. She said very quickly it turned into flirting and hanging out, and eventually a full-on affair. By this time, he's telling her I was getting suspicious that something was going on, and she was already pregnant. She told him about the pregnancy, and he told her he wouldn't be leaving me, but he would assist her with whatever the child needed. She was hurt and angry, but stuck with the situation, as she was already struggling with the two kids she had and needed the help. She went on to say that he was very much in love with me and that she was jealous of me for having him. Not one time was this woman remorseful. No apologies, nothing. I asked her did she even care what their affair did to my daughter, and she replied no, because she had enough on her plate dealing with her own children and, quite frankly, didn't care about mine. That's word for word, by the way. At this point, I told her that I've informed my daughter about her son, and she is currently not interested in participating in this scenario. She got outraged by that, telling me I have to make my daughter do this, that she is only part-time at our job and here, and her kids cannot survive on her income alone. I told her that she was a B, that if she even felt a little bit of guilt, I might have been able to talk to my daughter about her, but her lack of respect for my daughter's feelings is why I won't. I left her there yelling at me as I walked away to my car. She has since quit working at our job. Over the past year, I have addressed the situation with my daughter and she still doesn't want to do it. I've told her it's her decision either way and I support what she wants. My ex's parents are both deceased and his one sister is dead. He has an older brother, but they hadn't communicated in decades because of the brother's drug issues. I tried to find out about him when my ex died, but I couldn't find anything. My ex was dead 2 full days before the police finally got in contact with me. It was a shock. I never hated him. I hated what he did. There is a difference. I guess that's the update. If there are any questions you guys would like me to answer, I'll be around. Feel free to ask. Thank you for your time. Stay blessed. Wow, why would she quit her job if she was afraid of not getting enough money to support her kids? It seems like she's already just expecting the money to go straight into her pocket. I mean, at this point, I still don't know whether or not he even cheated on her in the first place. Is this woman trying to get a quick buck? Or is everything about her story true? Even if it is true, couldn't she show at least a little bit of remorse? I mean, come on, what do you expect, honestly? But yeah, at the end of the day, if the daughter doesn't want to do the DNA test, then don't make her do it, and drop it. Right, let's go to the final update. Okay, this has really blown up. Once again, I thank everyone who took the time to leave a comment. There are a lot of questions and assumptions. I'll do my best to answer them to the best of my ability. First of all, let me say I did not hate my husband. Hell, I don't even hate his affair partner. For those who think I'm trying to get some half-assed revenge on a toddler, just let me say you're insane to feel that way. In the moment when this all happened, I was in shock and total disbelief. I reacted without any real thought. I challenge anyone on here to say they haven't responded angrily with unwanted and unexpected news. However, I'm not a person who does not think of consequences to my actions, and that is why I sat down, calmed down, and figured out how to proceed. I talked to both my mum and my brothers before I talked to my daughter. They were also shocked, but urged me to talk to my daughter and get her input on this situation. As I said in my first update, my daughter has been in therapy before, during, and still after the divorce. I suggested to her to talk to her therapist about this, and she did. Based on my daughter's feelings of being adamantly opposed to being involved, her therapist suggested I give her time, and I have. My daughter is a sweetheart, and I'm not saying this about her because she's mine, but it has been a lot for her to deal with at one time. I'm sure in the end she'll change her mind, but I refuse to bully her into it. It has to be 100% her decision. Some of you think I hate my ex-husband and I'm using this situation to get back at him. I do not. I hated what he did, that is all. My ex and I talked at least twice a week. We had disagreements, sure, like other people. I wish he would have told me honestly. The affair had long been out the bag. I'm not going to say I would have enjoyed hearing it, but at least we would have known. See, we're too busy living, and oftentimes we subconsciously think everything will work out for the best. It never goes that way though, does it? If he would have told us, we could have long gotten over any shock, hurt or resentment, and possibly the kids could have long ago met each other. I would have known about the boy, and we all would have been better prepared when he died. Who knows? But I'm no longer angry or hurt. Please believe me when I tell you that I want an amicable solution to this as much as you do. That day in the coffee shop with her, I once again reacted, but I'm human with feelings and emotions just like all of you. My ex-husband had no one else but us. As I said, he has a brother who's on drugs, who I spent weeks trying to locate, and I couldn't. I would never have let him be buried by the state, because at the end of the day, we still loved him. I was married to him for 17 years for F's sake. Okay, and that's the final update for that story. Yeah, a bit of a mess and a lot of what-ifs there, but at the end of the day, the daughter's made the decision and it doesn't look like there's going to be a DNA test. And that's good. At least for Opie's sake, she doesn't have to hand over a bunch of money. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this one. Let me know down below. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. Okay, this next one's from Relationship Advice. It was written by user Rosie Lights, and it's titled, Boyfriend squeezed my throat for so long during sex I passed out. Red flag? Hey guys, my boyfriend and I have a really great relationship. I'm 21, he's 24. I love him and we're on the same page about a lot of things, and I can't see myself with anyone else but him. Sex-wise, we're both pretty much having sex twice a day, sometimes more since we both have a high libido, and I can always go again and so can he. We also like very rough sex, and he'll usually slap me and grab my hair, which I really get turned on by, and so does he. Recently he did something which scared the F out of me though, and I can't get it out of my head. I was on top of him riding him and he was kissing my neck, and then he started to put his hand around my throat. This is common for us, because I like him grabbing my throat, but this time he did it for way too long, and pressed super hard to the point where I blacked out, and fell on top of him while we were having sex. I woke up after a few seconds and was super confused, but he was still inside of me and he just tried to continue. I got really angry at him, and he didn't even try to apologize, just tried to continue having sex. When I spoke to him about it the next day, he said that he's always been that rough with me, and that he's Russian and he can't help his roughness, which angered me even more because he was laughing. He said I looked like I was enjoying it up until I passed out, so he didn't stop. I'm angry he put me into danger, and I'm honestly scared of him now. It's one thing to make me unconscious, but seems like he doesn't even care that he hurt me to that extent. I also have a bruise on my neck now, but thankfully since it's cold, I can cover it with a scarf. All my friends are telling me to leave him because they're saying he has serial killer tendencies. I don't know, I'm so confused and lost. I love him so much, but he honestly scared me. I don't want to make him angry by bringing this up again because it seemed to have ticked him off. Shall I try to speak to him again? Edit. Just want to clarify, I never actually said to him that I like being choked or introduced breath play into our relationship. I didn't even know what that was until someone wrote it here. I like him grabbing my throat and that's it, nothing more. It's the first time he actively squeezed and suffocated me, and it was something we never ever agreed on. People think I'm an idiot because I'm asking if this incident is a red flag. Guys, this is the first time he's ever hurt me or made me feel this way. I'm not at all excusing his behaviour, but it's so out of the ordinary for him that I needed an outside opinion, because even though I love my friends, they're very biased when it comes to him. Yeah, I think the fact that he kept going after Opie had very obviously passed out is a pretty big red flag. Just as bad that he seems to be dismissing the whole conversation about it. Let's see what the comments think. This happened to me once with my ex. He was choking me and apparently pressing down on exactly the right spot for a bit too long, and I passed out. I didn't even feel like I was going to. It was super strange. I was only out for maybe 30 seconds, and when I woke up he looked horrified. He apologized over and over, and he didn't take his eyes off me for a week because he was so worried about any side effects. It was an accident and we talked it through and discussed how to prevent it from happening again. This is the correct response. Laughing and making excuses are absolutely red flags in this situation. He might end up seriously hurting you during sex or otherwise and try to pin it on his roughness. I would absolutely end things over something like this, especially since he can't seem to accept that he scared you, that it's his fault, and that he should have made sure you were okay afterwards. Going past a lover's safe zone and into dangerous behaviour without consent or concern is a danger sign. This isn't talk about it, this is run away from it. You've expressed your feelings and he's told you he doesn't care and that he will continue to do what he wants because he's Russian? Get out now. This is how people end up dead. Make of that as you will. Oh, come on, I'm going to be direct because I think you need to hear it direct. Based on the first two sentences of your post, you're clearly living in a fantasy world. This man choked you until you went unconscious. You don't have a really great relationship. Not at all. Not only did he do this, he kept having sex with you. Think about how selfish and callous he has to be to not stop and show concern for your well-being. Then afterwards, he still doesn't show concern for you. No apology, just some lame excuse about being Russian? Blaming you for it because he says you liked it? This man is abusive. He abused you. You are now someone who has suffered domestic violence, and you should get far, far away from him. Today. Opie answers a couple comments. I love that she put a red flag question at the end of the title. He choked you until you were unconscious. He kept having sex with your limp body. What do you think the colour of this flag is, lol? Opie replies, because I genuinely didn't know if I'm overreacting. He's never done anything like this and I'm super confused at the entire situation. No need to be mean about it. I'm already beating myself up about the situation because we're not on great terms since our argument. Are you saying he's still angry at you over this? That's even more concerning that he's too dense to see what he did. It sounds like dude has a weak and unstable mind. Please don't apologise for your behaviour in this situation. You did nothing wrong. Opie says, yeah, he is kinda. In honesty, I did scream at him, but it's because I was really ticked at the fact he laughed when I expressed my fear. I don't know, maybe I could have handled it better, but we've not really seen each other since. He's been messaging me, but it's been kinda awkward since I'm expecting an apology, which I don't think I'll get since he's mad I screamed at him. But I wouldn't have screamed at him if he didn't hurt me. I think he's not trying to see where I'm coming from, which is really upsetting me. Yeah, I mean, all of that is a red flag, right? Let's go to an update. Hey everyone. Just over a year ago, I posted an incident on Reddit between my boyfriend, male 25, and I, female 22, where he choked me during sex and I passed out. I wanted to update everyone because I didn't expect so many people on Reddit to reach out to me. I still get messages today asking me if I'm okay, and it's really heartwarming. I felt obliged to update everyone because I received a lot of messages. I honestly think Reddit saved my life because I only realised how abusive the guy was until I left the relationship. After the incident, I cut contact with him for 3 months, basically ending the relationship. He pestered me non-stop with calls and visits to my house, even going as far as calling my sister at times. I felt really unsettled and scared that he would show up at my house out of the blue, so I decided to stay at my brother's for a few months. One night he drunk called me like 7 or 8 times, and I stupidly picked up. I think a part of me still worried for him at that point, so I thought he might be in danger. On the phone, he told me how much he loves me and how much he regrets hurting me. He said he's been feeling suicidal about our relationship ending. Anyway, this call was a lot for me, and I stupidly went to him and tried to calm him down in the bar. I would have never gone to his house. He kept repeating he was suicidal because our relationship ended and how he can't live without me. I felt so frickin' crap and I started crying because I literally didn't know what to do, being both scared of him and also scared of what he would do to himself. Anyway, while I'm literally crying my eyes out, he literally looks so unfazed, and I'm not even joking, not a single tear drops from his eyes when he's telling me he's feeling suicidal. The fact he also didn't comfort me while I was crying was also terrifying. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks later, he calls me and verbally abuses me on the phone. My brother is sitting next to me listening to the call with me, but I tell him not to say anything or intervene and to just record it. This guy literally calls me the most horrible, disgusting names. He says I'm ungrateful for everything he did for me. He also drops that he has a new girlfriend and basically wishes I rot in hell and become infertile. At this point, I get super worried for his new girlfriend and go on Insta and find out he posted her on his story. I message her to ask her to meet up because I have something serious to talk to her about, and she agrees. One thing I'm super grateful for is that not once was she reluctant to speak to me, and she was willing to hear me out about her boyfriend. We meet up and I tell her everything, from the choking to the verbal abuse and suicidal threats. I even showed her the recording my brother had when he screamed on the phone. Her face literally pales and she started feeling sick, so I try to calm her down. She told me how she's been seeing him for 4 months, so while he's been busy coming to my house, he also had a new girlfriend. And in the second month when they were coming back from drinks, he said something rude to her and she told him to shut up, and he punched her cheek. When they woke up the next morning, he apologized and said he had too much to drink and lost control. She said since he punched her, she's been walking around on eggshells and doesn't confront him. She's terrified to make him angry. She's in the process of getting a restraining order on him, and so am I. I feel really sorry for her, but I told her what to do and where to go for safety. I sent her the previous post and told her to read all the comments because they're honestly life-saving. I told her to always let people know where she is and have Find My Location on. She has my name saved under a different name because we're scared if he finds out we know each other, he might come after both of us. My ex is not mentally stable, and I'm so afraid for both of us. Thankfully, my brother is very aware of the situation, and since I'm staying with him, I feel a bit safe. But I can never shake the paranoia of him coming out of somewhere and attacking me. Honestly, I'll probably move far, far away from my city to get away from all of this. I'm 22, but this has honestly scared me away from all future relationships and men in general. Regardless, I want to thank all of you for everything. I never expected Reddit to help me with such a difficult situation, but it did. Thank you. Okay folks, and that's all she wrote. Yeah, I'm so glad she got out, and she saved another woman from him. Honestly, guys like that don't deserve good women. Or good anything for that matter. My ex-wife divorced me after she got cancer so that she could leave first. Now she wants to come back. Should I give her another chance? I met my wife, I'll call her Anna, during our first year of university. We dated through university and got married right after her graduation. Things were happy for a while until Anna discovered a lump in her right breast. I encouraged her to have it checked out. She was reluctant to do so, but ultimately did because breast cancer runs in her family. And sure enough, that's what she had. The good news, if it could be considered good news, was that the breast cancer she had was extremely treatable with chemo and radiation. Based on her family history, her doctor also recommended a double mastectomy for her. This put Anna in a really dark place. I suggested she go to therapy, but she outright refused and said she never wanted to hear me suggest that again. So I did my best to be encouraging and supportive to her. I took time off work to be at every appointment with her. I took on 100% of the household chores, both inside and out. I did all of the shopping. I drove Anna everywhere she wanted to go. I planned our special dates for us. I gave her an hour-long foot massage every night. I literally did whatever I could. About 6 weeks into her treatment, Anna brought up the idea of going to stay with her sister Sarah for a week. This honestly relieved me as I was burning the candle at both ends, trying to accomplish everything, and I thought some time apart would help us both. 2 nights into her stay with Sarah, Anna called me and said she wanted a divorce. She said she had read a lot about men who abandon their wives when their wives get sick, and that she was determined to leave me before I could leave her. I can't put into words how much this crushed me. I loved my wife. She was my everything. I begged her to reconsider. I told her I had never thought of leaving her, not even once. I asked her again to go to therapy, and she refused again. I asked her to go to couples therapy with me. She wouldn't. I asked her what I could do to convince her I wanted to stay. She said there was nothing. I'm a man, and therefore I would leave. End of story. It took about a year because of where we live, thanks COVID, but eventually everything was finalised. I ended up selling the house and splitting the proceeds between me and my now ex-wife. I didn't want to stay in that town anymore, so I put in a transfer request at my job and ended up moving to a town about 2 hours away. For the past couple of years, I've been focusing on myself more. I got a dog. I've been on a few dates, but nothing serious. I picked up hiking as a hobby and started gardening. Out of the blue, Anna called me 3 weeks ago. She said she's been in town on a trip with friends and saw me, and all of her old feelings rushed back. She said she was sick and out of her mind at the time, and that I couldn't hold her words or her actions against her. She said she still loved me, that she always had, and that she had regretted leaving me. She begged me to give her another chance. I'm so confused. If I'm being honest, I still love Anna, but I'm no longer in love with her. She broke my heart. I was devastated when she ended things. It took me a long time to get my head on right, but I also know she was in a really bad place because of the cancer. Do I owe it to her and what we had to hear her out? I'm scared that if we reconnect, I'll always feel like she'll have one foot out the door, but maybe that's unfair. I don't know what to do. Should I give her another chance like she wants? Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, I feel like the time they've had apart from each other would give Opie plenty of thinking on what he wants out of life, and whether or not he's already moved on. To be honest, it sounds like he has, like he's not in love with her anymore, and I totally understand that sentiment. Obviously, it would be different if he went those years, thinking about her all the time and struggling to live without her, but it sounds like he was doing well without her anyway. I don't know, I've always been of the sentiment that if you're going to marry someone and spend the rest of your life with them, then you truly cannot be able to live without them. What do you guys think? Let me know. Anyway, let's check out some comments. I never recommend couples getting back together unless the issues that drove them apart are fixed. Cancer was not the problem. Lack of communication, trust, and a willingness to compromise was on her end. She made unilateral decisions without caring how it affected you. She refused therapy. The way you're writing this, it's still all about what she wants, which sounds like the dynamic that destroyed your marriage. So what changed? I wouldn't do it. But if you want to open the door, you need to start with brutally honest couples therapy, and her active and honest participation is non-negotiable and a deal breaker otherwise. Have the therapy to hash out and bury the past, and see if dating is an eventual possibility. You guys need to start from scratch. And it's okay if you try it and you can't move on like she expects you to. She hurt you, regardless of her motivations. Sometimes you can't undo things. Did she ever get therapy? It doesn't sound like she actually did or plans to do anything to make up for her actions. Who's to say she won't drop you the next time a big hurdle in life comes along? I would tell her you don't think it would work. She hasn't changed. Here she is refusing to take responsibility for her actions when you both know you gave her every opportunity to find help. If she really wanted to make things work with you, why did it take her seeing you by chance to do something? No, she's just lonely and is trying to shoot her shot because she's betting you're not over her. Yeah, honestly, I think the comments are spot on here. Let's see what the update says. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who left comments on my original post. I now know what people mean when they say, "Rest in peace my inbox." I posted that and went to bed, never expecting it would blow up so much. By the time I woke up, the post was locked, not sure why, so I couldn't respond to any comments, but I read as many as I could and tried to take everything into consideration. Many of you suggested I reach out to my ex-wife Anna for an in-person conversation. The overwhelming consensus was that meeting her in person would tell me all I needed to know, and you were right. That seemed reasonable to me. I texted her and she jumped at the chance to meet, and we did so yesterday after I was done work. I chose to ask her to meet at a local coffee shop. Maybe it sounds bad, but I didn't want to meet her at my house or anywhere private, just in case. Anyway, Anna was already there when I got there. She got up and hugged me. I let her, but didn't hug her back. Then we sat down. I asked her to remain quiet while I talked, and then I told her everything. I'm going to sum it up here because I honestly don't remember everything I said. I think I talked for like 10 minutes solid while she just sat there and teared up. But I told her things like how much she had devastated me. I told her that I would have stuck with her through thick and thin, no matter what. I told her that I loved her, and that hadn't changed after her diagnosis or treatment plan. I told her that I was broken after she initiated the divorce. I told her how hard it was for me to pull myself back together. A lot of you pointed out that if Anna and I got back together, I should be worried about what she would do the next time she got sick, or if I got sick. And you were right, so I told her that too, and she got mad and interrupted me at that point. She said I was being unfair, that I wasn't taking into consideration her mental health at the time. She said she wasn't thinking straight, but that now she was. I took the chance to ask her if she'd been to therapy. She told me she hadn't, and that she had no plans to, and that she didn't need it. I have to admit, that crushed me a little. I asked her why. Just why? It's the one question I've really wrestled with over the months, and she said that she'd gone looking for support groups and found a lot of women who had stories about their partners leaving. She even mentioned Reddit, funnily enough. She said she talked it through with her sister, Sarah. Anna said that Sarah, to her credit, had tried to dissuade her from divorcing me, but that between social media and some of Anna's friends, Anna felt like she had to go through with it to be seen as a strong woman. That is word for word what she said to me. I don't remember anything else exactly, but I'll never forget that. She broke my heart and threw away our relationship because somehow in her mind that translated to being strong. She then started trying to tell me we could get back together again, but at that point I just told her flat out that wasn't happening. What it comes down to, for me, is that I just can't trust her. I would always be worrying about the same thing happening again. She cried a lot and tried convincing me for a little while. When I got up to leave, she threw her iced coffee in my face and stormed out. So yeah, we're definitely not getting back together. I have the closure I always wanted. I wish it felt better. I've been dwelling on it for the past day and a half. I keep wondering if there's something I could have done better, some way I could have saved our relationship, but I know there's not. I blocked her number. I kind of hope I never hear from her again. Okay, folks, and that's the end of that story. Gee, a bit of a grim ending there, but all in all, I think we can all agree that that's probably what's best for OP here. Let me know your thoughts about that one down below, and we'll move on to our next story. Okay, this next one was written by user Empty World, and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my fiancé for not bringing me lunch? I, 25 female, and fiancé Mark, 26, have been together 2 years. Me and Mark met through mutual friends and went to the same high school together, but didn't start dating till years after we graduated. He's currently in the military and is stationed in another state, but kept our relationship strong through the long distance, and of course when he comes home for vacation, breaks and holidays. We also have a dog named Willie that we got together, but of course he stays with me and sees Mark when he's home. When he's home, he stays at my place and spends time at his family's while I'm at work. Since he flies home, he leaves his personal vehicle at base and sometimes uses my car. He also picks me up for my lunch break and eats together. He doesn't miss a lunch day. He got home 5 days ago and I returned back to work. Mark dropped me off so he could use my car for errands and to re-up on Willie's food since we ran out during his morning feed. When he picked me up at the end of my shift, I asked Mark if he bought the big or small bag of Willie's food. He paused and mentioned that he forgot to buy the food. Mind you, I work a 10-hour shift and fed Willie the minute I got up to get ready for work, which was 11 to 12 hours ago. I asked Mark what has he been doing while I was at work, and he just said he was out spending time with his brothers. I'm a very understanding and patient person. I was mad that Willie had gone so long without eating, but gave him the benefit of the doubt since he hasn't seen his family in months. I let it go. A couple days later, Mark mentioned he was going Christmas shopping with his brothers and wouldn't be able to take me to lunch since he was going before their shifts. My brother-in-laws are 20 and 22 and haven't saved up for their own cars, so had to use mine. We had a surprise meeting that day, which extended my lunch to a later time that Mark would be free for. I called Mark and told him of my new lunch hour and asked if he could bring me a plate of food. Mark weirdly hesitated and said he had to go feed Willie first since it was time for his second feeding. I suggest to feed Willie after he dropped off some lunch for me since my break was only for 1 hour and wouldn't have enough time to eat if he went back home first. Mark heavily insisted on feeding Willie first because he didn't want to upset me the way he did when he forgot to feed him a couple days ago. I felt off. I love Willie very much, but I told him Willie was not going to starve from 5 hours of not eating. Mark suggested I just wait till the end of my shift to go eat after work. I was dumbfounded that Mark was being heavily hesitant on bringing me food, especially since he's in my car and I haven't ate since last night because I'm not much of a breakfast person. I was starving. What could be more important than buying a plate of food for your starving partner? I got upset and asked Mark what's really going on because he's never missed a lunch date with me. Mark got loud and said I'm tripping and hung up on me. I called him back and all calls were rejected. He texted me saying he was going home and we could talk after work because he was tired from shopping. For petty reasons, I had a bag of chips in my desk that I refused to eat so he could hear my stomach growl when he picked me up later. I see him pull up to the front of my office building, and I calmly get in the car. The second we got home, I tell him it's over and ask to pack his things and leave. He calls me a crybaby and frickin' dramatic and will regret breaking up. Is he right, and am I just being extra for ending the relationship? Yeah, I think we all know what everyone's thinking here. It seems like he's going out of his way to avoid helping her. And going shopping, really? Nah, he's using that car to go somewhere else. Also, the fact that he's constantly defensive about it says a lot. Let's check the comments. Not being dramatic, he's being super shady. I don't believe he was really hanging out with his brothers these 2 days. He had other plans. OP replies, I asked after he was done hanging with his brothers at the mall. I would not have asked him to bail on his brothers in the middle of his plans. I also got super upset because he hung up right in the middle of our call and didn't answer any further phone calls or text. He also never went to go feed Willie. We don't share locations, so I don't know where he was all this time, to be honest. You didn't dump him for not bringing you lunch. You dumped him because he's selfish, shady, entitled, and freeloading off your generosity at the expense of you and your dog. He was using your car to cheat on you, by the way. He's the a-hole. He was using your car, he's staying at your place, you seldom get to see him. He is clearly hiding something from you, and he is grabbing at any excuse to hide it. You asked a simple favour. His refusal was rude and close to cruel. What more do I need to say? It's simple. He had a woman in the car when you phoned. He was either starting to get bored or he has another girl he was seeing. What are his friends that he serves with like? Their relationships. A lot of enlisted guys will let others' bad experiences get into their heads when they're away from home, or they'll get made fun of for basically being decent significant others while on leave and start to take it out on the girlfriend or wife. The military pumps up their heads so bad that no one else's problems or careers are as more important as being a soldier, marine or sailor, so when they actually get treated like a regular old Joe at home, they get all put out, like, you dare ask me to run an errand? Or stand up to me? Count your blessings, base housing sucks. The benefits for spouses is nowhere near as good as they make them sound. You're moving every 3 to 4 years, shouldering all the responsibilities at home 6 to 12 months, with some short leaves in between if you're lucky. Okay, on to an update. To answer some repeating questions, all gifts were bought and given to my mother-in-law since she loves to wrap and Mark is super bad at keeping gifts a secret. Even if extra gifts were being bought as a surprise, no gift would be okay to leave me with anxiety and overthinking for the remaining 6 hours of my shift. I also didn't mention that I also had a feeling that he was probably out cheating, since I wanted the actual thought and point of view of everyone that read through this. I wanted to see if everyone's gut feelings and intuition thought the same without my influence. I also mentioned the part of me being petty to not paint myself as the saint some people say I'm assuming to be, and to show my raw emotion and irrational thinking coming from a place of hurt and anger. Now the update. Mark packed his stuff and left. The next morning, I noticed he left an old college jacket that belonged to his stepdad and meant a lot to him with a deep meaning behind it. I could have been petty and thrown it away, but decided to text Mark and maybe even talk it out after a night of being away and letting things calm down. I texted Mark, "Hey, you left some clothes behind," and his response, "Wow, already crawling back, throw it away, I don't want that crap," without even knowing it was the jacket. I left him on red and decided to text his mother if I could stop by and drop off the said jacket. She said of course and told me to come by and also pick up the gifts I'm assuming I wanted back. I came over and was immediately greeted by his mother and stepdad, who hugged me and asked if I was okay and needed to talk. I immediately broke down. I explained the situation and basically told them the same story as I told on here. His mother was ticked and decided to call Mark and ask for his side of the story, but did not mention I was there to listen in on the call. Mark answered by saying that I called him at the time he was with Nick and Devon, his brothers, and told me that he couldn't leave them at the mall since he was the only one with transportation, and immediately blew up on him for picking his brothers over me. I yelled, "That's not true," out of frustration, and showed my mother-in-law the call history, which checked out at the time that both brothers were already clocked in for their shifts, which mother and father-in-law confirmed to be their shifts. One brother-in-law also shared a picture of him and some co-workers around the same time I asked him to bring me lunch. Mark hung up the call. In-laws texted Mark and sided with me. I thanked them for the memories and love and left my engagement ring with them. Mark has called me repeatedly and has sent text messages begging to talk. After an hour, I finally answered and told him to tell me the truth, or this would be the final time we spoke. Mark admitted to seeing another woman, an ex to be exact. I hung up and haven't answered since. I know it says that this all happened today, but it actually took place 2 days ago. I'd typed it out and left it as a draft, since I cried myself to sleep and have been trying to keep it together. Update on Willie. Willie stays at a doggy care while I'm at work, lol, but we both decided to leave Willie home while he was in town to save money from it. Okay guys, and that's the last update for that one. Yeah, I mean, I think we all expected it, but it's always hard when it does come out. Like, that last interaction with the in-laws would have been heartbreaking, especially if she had a close relationship with them, which it sounds like she did. But yeah, the absolute gall of that guy to come back, use her car to cheat on her with an ex, like, God, what a horrible thing to do. Okay, now for a couple comments to close it off. This sub has taught me that many military members cheat while deployed, but this guy cheated at home too. I hope OP gets all the STD tests. In my experience, both as a veteran and as a former military spouse, that many members of the military are little more than walking genitals. They will F whoever they can as often as they can, regardless of any commitments or relationships they already have. There is a kind of code, at least among lower enlisted, to lie and protect each other if someone's girl shows up looking for him, and woe to you if you break that frickin' code. I once admitted to a friend's girlfriend, who had become a friend in her own right, that he was seeing other women. I didn't broach the topic, she asked me, and I felt uncomfortable lying to her about it. The backlash was ridiculous. Took me months to move past it, but I made it clear I wasn't going to be lying for people anymore. So if others wanted to F around on their partners, they'd have to do it where I wasn't. There you go. I never knew that was a kind of culture in the military. The more you know. I have just been betrayed by the two people I trusted most, and I don't know what to feel anymore. I'm sorry if this is annoying. I can't stop thinking about it, and for some reason I feel more secure venting it to strangers rather than people who know me and can judge me more in depth. I won't lie, I've been suspecting my fiancé was having an affair, but I didn't have any solid evidence to accuse him. Even then, I had a feeling that I didn't want to dig any deeper because I was scared in case what I was suspecting was true. 12 days ago, I came home from visiting my mum's and I headed upstairs to wake my fiancé as he had a habit of sleeping in way past 2 p.m, and then complained that I didn't wake him. I open the door and all I see is my practically naked sister rushing to try and get out of a lingerie bodysuit that belonged to me. I don't know how to explain it, but my mind just went blank, like whatever I was thinking about beforehand suddenly disappeared. You know when you stand up too fast and your head just gets a little dizzy? That's what I felt, alongside the feeling of sickness brewing in my stomach. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds looking at the two people I trusted most look more shocked than I felt. My fiancé jumped out of bed and suddenly came up with excuses. It went from, it was an accident, to, I was lonely and needed sexual relief. I probably should add my best friend killed herself 2 weeks ago. The girl I knew for over 15 years was suddenly out of my life, and even though I'm surrounded by people, I've told my fiancé about how alone, devastated and guilty that I couldn't have done anything to help her. I just left. I didn't take my car because at that point my eyes were just about to start flooding. I walked to my friend's, 10 minutes, and confided in her about what happened. The amount of grief I felt from not only losing a BFF, but losing my relationship with my fiancé and sister within the same 2-week period. Now that I'm sitting down to write this, I don't know if any of these relationships will ever be mended or could ever go back to the way they were. I don't understand why my sister, of all people, would do this. There was never any favoritism towards any of us for her to feel spite. I've never intentionally tried to hurt her. I gave her shelter when she had no place to go, and despite her not paying a single penny, I bought her food that she liked, made sacrifices in my own home for her. Hell, she kept ranting about how our living room walls gave her a headache, and they were white, so I took time out of my day to paint it a nice grey colour. My fiancé too. I gave that man everything. I was willing to have kids with him despite the fact I was always wanted to be child-free, but I was going to start a family so that he was happy. I gave him comfort whenever something bad happened to him. I spent hours watching unfunny movies that he seemed to find hilarious. I even gave him a frickin' locket with our anniversary photo in, that he decided to wear while sticking it in my sister. These last days I've went from sadness to being angry, then disgusted, and it's a constant cycle I've not been able to get out of. Despite being smoking free for 2 years, I picked up a cigarette. I used to be heavily addicted to smoking from 16 to 21. I'm currently 23. There's the moments when I go to do something but automatically lose interest, and even times over dinner. I don't know how to explain it properly as I've never felt this way, but I'm bored of eating. I have to physically force myself to eat something, and I have no idea what's going on to my body at this very moment. For some reason it feels as if I went into hibernation. I sleep almost 17 hours a day now, and even for the rest of those hours I'm still tired and force myself to stay awake. Both of them asked to meet up on Wednesday. My sister's exact message was, "Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now, but can you meet me and fiancé? We want to talk and we want you to properly hear us out. The situation you found us in was not the most ideal situation to put you in a good headspace to talk about it right there and then. Please let us explain. I love you and you're my sister and I don't want to lose you. Please." I think it's too late. It was too late from whenever this affair started, or even when you started getting sexual desires for my fiancé. I miss my sister, but according to what I saw, the sister I miss and whoever my sister is now are not the same person. I haven't talked to anyone yet except the one friend I'm currently staying with at the moment. I'm scared I'll be seen as a failure of a future wife, but now I don't even think I want to be a wife anymore. But I guess I'd rather share to strangers than people who know me personally. I apologize again. Hi, me again. I'm back and editing the post. At first I was just going to dump this vent to get it out of my mind, but I want to say thank you for everyone's advice. I guess this counts as a small update? I'm unsure. So far nothing big has really happened. The friend I'm staying with has offered to come with me to talk to my parents about this, also including my older brother. She's honestly been my rock through this whole situation, and I couldn't ask for a better support system from one person, though I don't plan on putting that on her shoulders since it would be stressful to be the designated support system friend. I'm currently looking into therapy for both my grief and the affair. I'm not well versed legal-wise, so I'm currently in the process of looking for a lawyer, just so legally I know I'm in the clear, in case there would be a loophole somewhere. I did contact my sister, and another copy-pasted message I replied, "I don't plan on meeting with you on Wednesday. I'll talk to you when I'm ready, and whether it be tomorrow or years from now, it doesn't matter. You both owe me my own time to heal, after the two people I've trusted most went behind my back, betrayed my trust, all under my roof that you both lived rent-free under. Bye." I can't lie, I was almost ready to tell her to meet me there when she sent that message, but I've realised, and through the help of the people in the comments that I can't thank enough, I need time to work on myself mentally, rather than repair a long-gone relationship with my sister. No, I don't plan on going back to my ex and never will. Maybe one day I'll hear him out, but today is not that day. As for now, I'm getting ready to try and explain to my parents everything that happened. I don't have any evidence between my ex and sister. However, I do have their messages they sent me, which traps one another. I think that's the right wording. But anyways, thank you all for the advice and kind comments and messages. Have a good day or night. Man, Opie's really going through it here. Let's go to the comments. You have nothing to apologize for and nothing to be ashamed about. None of this was your fault. You've suffered a horrible betrayal by a family member and a partner. Again, none of this was your fault. To hell with your ex-fiancé. To hell with your sister. No amount of apologies or excuses should smooth over a betrayal of this magnitude. Can you move out to a more permanent location? Can your friend help you pick up your things? Have you considered speaking to your family about this? And again, none of this is your fault, and nobody is going to fault you for not being able to be your best right now. Lean on the other people in your life right now if you can. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but you can pull through this. Opie replies, "Honestly, I've not thought about my plans so far. The house we lived in I inherited from my grandma, so as far as I know I can kick both of them out, though I'm not well versed in a lot of legal stuff, so I'm currently trying to take a look at my options in case I need a lawyer or anything like that. As for family, I haven't said a word yet. I'm not really spoken to anyone except the friend I'm currently staying at. I plan to tell them eventually about everything, though I'm just trying to better myself mentally before telling anyone else. Please do not meet up with them. Not yet, and not on your own. They won't own up to anything. They won't be remorseful. It will be an exercise in gaslighting and blame shifting, and it will leave you feeling even more heartbroken. That your sister can even suggest you meet the two of them together shows how removed she is from reality. If she loved you, she would have cut contact with him. Focus on yourself and your healing, and getting him the F out of your house. Start telling people, especially family, the truth when you feel ready. Just know that your ex and your sister might try and manipulate the truth. Their lies and their betrayal say nothing about you, but are indicative of their character, or lack of it. I'm so sorry they did this to you. Whatever you do, do not meet up with them. The fact she used us in her message means they'll be informing you that they're a couple now. They're going to blame hiding it on you and your grief. They're going to use this meeting to manipulate you. You need to tell your family so they hear it from you first. Also, you need to start the eviction process now. The relationship you thought you had with your sister and fiancé is over. They were never the people you thought they were. The best way to move on from people like them is to go strict no contact immediately. I would block them everywhere. Ask your friend that you're staying with to put word out that the wedding is cancelled and why. I wish you the best. Okay, update. 1 year and 1 month later. Hi Reddit, me again. I honestly forgot about this account until the friend I was staying with, I'll just name her Alice, sent me a TikTok where one of those AI voices reads a Reddit post, and you'd never guess whose post it was reading. Mine, lol. I wanted to log back on as I wanted to thank the people who showed me more kindness than people I was supposed to trust, and also the people who seemed interested in my life. Can't blame them. When I read something that has some drama, I do also become invested. I'll start with myself. I got myself into therapy and began taking care of myself, and myself only. Entering my relationship with my ex, I hadn't noticed how much time I spent taking care of him and neglecting myself and my needs. It was one of those relationships that you didn't notice the faults until you leave and become a sort of spectre of what the relationship actually was. I think part of me was so invested in believing he was a good guy because of how past relationships had hurt me before that I tried very hard to hold on to the idea that I'd finally found someone who was different. Loving the wrong person can lead to devastating consequences, and I just happened to do that exact thing. Whenever I'd seen stories before about people staying with their cheating partner, I was so quick to criticize how stupid that would be, and thought, what did you expect? When they cheat again and again. But now that I've been through that, it was eye-opening. It's not easy to just up and leave behind someone you had invested so much love, time and effort into. Yes, you can lose all love for that person in seconds, but you never lose the feeling of the love you felt before, if that makes sense. After I found out I did want to try and work it out for many reasons, but through the help of my therapist, she helped me realize that I wanted to stay because after my best friend's death, he was the only thing that felt familiar in that moment. Everyone is growing up and moving away in my life. I was in a position that I felt so alone, but to expect people not to change is to not allow growth. They all moved out of my house, and I moved back in. I won't lie, it was lonely. I was so used to other voices in my home that it felt empty, but an empty room is open to hundreds of ideas in my opinion. I redecorated with the help of friends and some family, and even though I'd lost 2 people, thanks to them I was able to make memories that I'll cherish. I won't try and cover up that before I got therapy I was indeed a wreck. I was just so tired of disappointment from my ex that the cheating was the final blow that knocked me back into reality. My sister's betrayal hurt way worse because we share the same parents. We used to share bunk beds, and without my knowledge, shared the same partner. But I owe them a thanks for allowing me to remove people who clearly had no good intentions. I will always love my sister, even though I don't want to, but sometimes there are strings attached to people that just can't be cut, and she is one of them. I'll never welcome her into my home again, but I'll answer the phone if she was at her lowest. Even though she was a snake in my garden, doesn't mean she's not my sister. She did try to call a couple of weeks after she had moved out, and at first I was angry at her. I honestly just wanted to hit her with everything I had, but when I answered and heard her voice, I just felt sorry for her. Everyone in my family knew how terrible she was, and just for some pleasure she ruined the last relationship that was trying to help her. I just think she's a very self-destructive person that will never learn. They were constantly staying at different friends' houses because they couldn't afford to rent anywhere. My sister is apparently cheating on my ex with random people, and none of them are able to hold down a job. I would say karma, but it's just sad. My ex traded someone who became a pushover for him, who gave him everything she could for someone who couldn't give a crap about him. I wish them well. I deserve better than that, and I just hope one day they grow up and begin to become better people than who they are right now. My family no longer talk to my sister, so she's on her own. Some things I hear about her reminds me of just a confused child. However, I did see her on New Year's Eve. Me and some friends went clubbing because why not, and we unintentionally ran into her. At first I tried to ignore her and just pretend I didn't see her, but she ended up coming up to me and tried to talk to me as if nothing happened. As the ex-partner, I wanted to slap her, but as her sister, I wanted to hug her and ask why. But I just left. After we remove labels of sister or her partner's ex, or whatever, we share the same DNA, and that will always be the thing that connects us. As for my dating life, I'm currently seeing someone and have been doing since November 23. I deserve happiness, and I deserve a lot more than what my ex gave me. However, I'm still dealing with issues from that relationship that has me in moments of guilt, of not giving my full trust. I'm happy that he understands and listens to me when I have concerns, but I don't want to constantly live with issues I carried because of someone else. We're taking it slow, and he always reassures me. He's a good guy, and I'm happy he's in my life. I'll find my peace with the situation eventually, but I'll have to work to get to that point, and that's okay. Sorry for the whole ramble, but this is still sort of a vent post. I have a lot of mixed emotions that I haven't been able to untangle. Thank you to everyone who listened, reached out, and gave advice. I appreciate that so much, and I hope everyone had a good new year. Okie dokie, and that's the end of that story. Wow, what an epic, but Opie eventually comes out on top by the sounds of it. It's funny how life has a way of working out for people who are deserving, and vice versa. But you can't help but think, like Opie said, it might be karma, but it's just sad at the end of the day. She obviously has a very good heart to still be able to feel empathy for her sister in that situation. Anyways, give me your thoughts about this one down below, and we'll move on to the next story. Okay, we're on the 2X chromosome subreddit. This one was written by user Gracie Beaker, and it's titled, I had my promotion offer retracted because my boss learned I was getting married. First ever Reddit post. I'll try and make all of this understandable. Posting this here too as I don't really have anyone to vent to about this. Background, 22 female, works for a fast food chain for the past 2.5 years, engaged since May 2019. So back in January, my manager brought me into the office and offered me a promotion. She was relaying their info from the owner. The promotion was to become a shift manager at one of the other restaurants in my city. I would obviously get a pay raise, better hours, more consistent, and various other perks. I initially told her I needed to think about taking it, but I was definitely excited and enthusiastic. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with her to discuss some questions I had about the job, what benefits, where I was working, training, etc. One of my questions was whether it was reasonable to request as part of my new contract to have the week of my wedding off in August. She said absolutely and would ask the owner for me if that could be written into the contract. Wednesday, I go into her office to ask about any new info or developments. She shut the door and said that the offer has been retracted and I would not be getting the promotion. She explained that the owner had decided to retract the offer after learning I was getting married, and that, quote, a young woman getting married means she's going to get pregnant. She also said that, if you were a man, we would not be having this conversation. I was, and still am, absolutely gobsmacked. It's the first time in my life that I've ever felt sexism or discrimination based on sex in my entire life. I'm so freaking angry. I've essentially now lost my job. I'm still currently employed there, but I have no desire to continue working there whatsoever. I feel utterly disgusting and somewhat dirty, even though I did nothing wrong. I love working there and all the people at my restaurant have done nothing to me, but it's the fact that I would be working for an owner that's so blatantly sexist. I've gone and sought legal advice at an equality organisation in my city, and I'm waiting for a response from the person in charge. I've also opened a complaint in my company's HR department, who have asked me to contact the owner directly to understand exactly why I haven't got this promotion. They said that my manager may have misunderstood the reason why. Thank you so much for reading. Not sure what outcome I want from all of this, I just had to get it off my chest. Wow, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's illegal, right? I mean, I'm fairly sure there's laws in place to prevent this sort of thing. Let's see what the comments think. One good thing is that your manager 100% wants you to take legal action. She told you blatantly that it was gender discrimination. Fast food chain? Put in the complaint to company headquarters HR. Just because your location is privately owned doesn't mean that HQ can't lean hard on them. That BS is illegal. From a man's perspective, this is total bullcrap. I agree with others that are saying she basically told you to take legal action, in a hint wink wink sort of way. I really hope this can be resolved legally in your country. I also hope the owner is punished in some way as well. That type of thinking is not okay. If you're like me though, I'm not sure I could continue working there even if the promotion is restored, because it's hard to mentally pour your soul into a company that has had someone at the top crap on you like the owner did. I'm sorry you have to deal with this nonsense. HR is going to protect the company. Do not talk to the owner. Wait to hear back from the equality organisation. Yeah, I didn't really think about the fact that this could be in a completely different country with completely different laws. I just automatically and wrongly assume that every post I read is American or something. Let's go to the update. So obviously a lot has happened between my first post and this one, so I'll do my best to summarise the past 2 years of my life. February 2020. I had an in-person meeting with my manager, the owner of the restaurant franchise, and a supposed mediator. I legally recorded the audio of the meeting. This part is important. I was very unhappy with the outcome of this meeting. It felt like no one listened to me and I was bullied by the higher-ups into making this all go away. March 2020. After all of this went down, I sought a lawyer at a local union firm who agreed to take on my case. Due to the laws of my country, Switzerland, my case was classed as a civil one between two individuals, so there could be no criminal consequences and my monetary compensation would be limited to 3 months' salary, as written in Swiss law. Between March and August 2020, lots of back and forth between my lawyer and my ex-employer, basically denying all responsibility, not wanting to do anything, etc. August 2020, again, as per Swiss law, a mediation meeting was set up between myself, my boss, and the lawyers in front of a judge. The judge was purely there to help keep things civil if necessary, no say whatsoever. This mediation meeting lasted 15 minutes, with my boss's lawyer refusing to budge. My boss didn't even turn up to this meeting. Since we couldn't come to an agreement, I was given permission to file a formal case, which meant a judge would hear my case and rule on it. Between August 2020 and May 2021, hardly any news from either side. COVID slowed everything to a snail's pace, so I was told to just wait while all the administrative cogs turned. May 2021, the big day. My case was heard in front of a judge, with witnesses called from both sides to testify and lots of evidence filed, from my side at least. My key piece of evidence was this audio recording, in which my boss and manager basically put their foot in it. The judge asked them both to explain themselves, with neither giving very convincing arguments to defend themselves. I stood in court and told my account of the story, staring my boss right in the face. Between May 2021 and February 2022, more waiting. I knew the law was slow, but geez Louise, at this point, I had put the case to the back of my mind. February 7th, 2022, my state civil court ruled in my favour. I won. I took my boss to court over discrimination, and a judge found him liable. I won. I can't begin to describe how incredible it feels. I cried on the phone with my lawyer when she called me to tell me the news. It was never about the money, it was always about accountability and acknowledgement. I'm so proud of myself for pursuing this despite the odds stacked against me. Discrimination is incredibly hard to prove. Too bad I had that recording, winky face. To all those 2 years ago that commented and supported me, thank you. My ex-employer was found guilty of discriminatory behaviour, as so written in Swiss law, and ordered to pay compensation. I know my story is one of thousands out there, with so many of them never receiving the justice or recognition they deserve, but I hope this gives confidence to others. We can do it. Wow, great ending there. And yeah, while there are laws like that in place, yeah, like Opie said, very rarely do people who, become victim of this kind of behaviour get the compensation they deserve. But it's good to hear a feel-good story about it. What do you guys think about this one? Let me know down below. My fiancé wants to put his family before mine, even at the expense of my family's health. Throwaway, as my work friends are on my main, and they don't know this is going on. Also, obligatory that this is on mobile, so spelling and grammar will be poo. This is a long one, but I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I, 28 female, got engaged to my partner of 7 years, R, 29 male, in May. Both sides of our family were really happy about this, and we had a big family meal 2 weeks after getting engaged. His brother lives 250 miles away and couldn't get here for that meal, so we decided to have a meal just for his family in late June when his brother would be back for the weekend. This weekend was arranged long before we got engaged, so he wasn't back just for the meal. Earlier this year, my sister, Kay, 32, got a serious eye infection that very quickly turned into an ulcer, which scarred her cornea and left it at a high risk of perforation. She needed a corneal graft, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she was going to have to wait until he got back to have it. However, her eye didn't hold, and it perforated the day I was supposed to be going to the family meal with R's brother. Kay's wife was at work and had her phone turned off, and our mum was away with her stepdad, so when Kay called me to let me know what was happening, I knew she would be at the hospital on her own. I immediately talked to my boss, and he let me go early so Kay wasn't on her own. I texted R to let him know what was going on, and he texted me back to send Kay his love and to remind me about the meal that night. I ignored the comment about the meal as it was the last thing on my mind. Once I got to the hospital, I was taken back into a room where Kay was, to be greeted by 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around trying to help Kay. I was then informed that she needed to have an emergency operation to have her eye glued, or else she would lose it. The problem was that they didn't have a surgeon at that hospital that could do it, and she needed to go to another hospital that was an hour and a half away. They asked if she would need transportation or if I could take her. I said I would take her. Once we got to the other hospital, we were told that she would be having the operation at 5:30 p.m. I knew then that I wouldn't make the dinner and texted R to let him know. He flipped out and basically told me to leave Kay at the hospital and have her wife pick her up after the op was done. At this point, I still hadn't been able to get a hold of Kay's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen and that he was out of order to even ask me to do that. I then texted his mum and told her what was going on. She was really supportive and told me to stay with Kay and let her know how the op goes. A dinner can be rescheduled. Kay's health can't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally as understanding. I stayed with Kay. Her operation was a success and I got her back home about 9 p.m. Her wife had ordered some Chinese and offered me some, which I happily accepted as I hadn't eaten since lunch. With that, I didn't get home till about 11 p.m, and R was already asleep. R was very short with me for days after, and we ended up having a huge fight where he told me that I should have put his brother and family before Kay. He said he was embarrassed going to the meal without me. I responded that I was embarrassed he thought I would put a meal before my sister's health. This led to another week of awkwardness between us before we finally sat down and we sorted it out, or so I thought. 8 weeks ago, Kay got her graft, and so far everything is going really well with it. On Saturday, his brother was here, so he went out for dinner with his family. His family were all asking about how Kay was doing, and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. I thought that everything had gone really well until we got home and he got really angry, saying that I shouldn't have brought up Kay's health issues and I shouldn't have shown them the picture. I argued that they'd asked about her and asked to see the picture. It ended with him telling me that I needed to put him and his family before Kay or else we weren't going to work. His family will come before mine once we are married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs and packed a bag. I'm now at my mum's house and he's been bombarding me with text and calls since I left. I do love him, but I'll never put his family above my own family's health. I feel like he's expecting me to spend every holiday with his family and put their wants above my family's needs, which won't happen. I'm very close to my sister and my mum. That's not going to change, so I don't really know how to move forward, or if I even want to. Has anyone experienced anything like this before? If so, how do you deal with it? I mean, surely it goes without saying that that's a completely unreasonable request from a spouse or from anyone really. What do you guys reckon? Let's check some of the comments. You did exactly what you should. I'm revolted by his behaviour and you should call his mother and tell her what he said and why you're cancelling the wedding. Lost deposit costs are less than what divorce costs. OP replies, we haven't booked anything yet for the wedding, so that isn't an issue. The only issue that would be a pain would be the house, as it's in my name, but with him living there for so long, I may have to pay him off. I'm not 100% sure how that would work though. If a spouse can't understand emergencies come up, it will be a hard marriage. Parents get old and need help. Brothers and sisters get sick and worse. It sounds ridiculous, and what you need to find out, is he this mad on his own, or is it because his family is mad at him, which is even worse? Opie replies, "His family is amazing and they had no issue with me missing the dinner and have been so supportive through all of this. His mum even dropped off a shepherd's pie to my sister and her wife the week after she had her graft to help out a little. It was just him. His mum and brother are furious with him right now because of his attitude." Quote, "He is now insisting that I put his family before my own. I don't know how to move forward with him." You don't. You let him know that this is a showstopper. Tell him to go argue with his mother about it. If she doesn't change his mind, it's over. Can you keep his family and dump him? They seem like nice, caring people. Opie says, "I wish I could. His mum is honestly one of the best people I've ever met. She did warn me in the beginning that R is like his dad, who I've never met, but I hadn't seen that until this happened. I think that I knew what I needed to do before I came here, but it's hard throwing 7 years of my life away." Yeah, I bet, and it's never as easy a decision as people on the internet make it out to be. Let's go to an update. Thank you so much for everyone that commented. I replied to as many as I could, but I read all of them. Warning, this is going to be longer than the original post. A lot has happened. For those that want a long version, once I decided to end things with him, I knew that the main issue would be getting him out of my house. I owned the house outright. My grandma died 5 years ago and left her house to my mum, who sold it and split the money between me and my sister. I then bought my house with that money about a year after she died. I got in touch with my stepdad's friend, who was a landlord, the day after I wrote my original post, who then put me in touch with his solicitor. He didn't have time to see me in person that day, but we did have a phone call where he gave me my options. In the UK, we have something called a Section 8 notice. This is a 14-day eviction notice, and the solicitor said this would be the quickest way to get him out. However, he could try and contest it if he wanted to, which would lead to court dates and could take months. I asked him to draw up the notice and date it for Friday, the next day. I'd already made the decision to end things with him after work on Friday, so that he could have the weekend to sort through his emotions before work on Monday. On Friday morning, I texted R and asked him to meet with me at our local pub after work. He quickly agreed. Not only is the pub a public space, but my stepdad and a few of his work friends go in there every Friday after work for a few pints, so I knew he would be there to step in if I needed him. Thank you for suggesting this, Redditors. I also picked up the eviction notice on my lunch break, so I was ready to give it to him. Cost £250, but was worth it. When I got to the pub, R was already there, and my stepdad was stood at the bar with his workmates. I sat down with R and got straight to the point. I told them that it was over. I couldn't be with someone who didn't give me any support when I was going through one of the scariest moments of my life and expected me to drop my family for his. It didn't matter what excuses he could come up with, I wasn't interested. I'd made up my mind, and we were done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like an hour, and was probably only a minute or so. He then started saying I couldn't be serious. We'd been together for 7 years, and I was throwing it all away. I could never find another guy like him. I responded to the last comment with, "I don't want a guy like you, that's why I'm ending it. I need someone who will support me when times get tough, not get annoyed that the world isn't bowing down to what he wants." I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find a place and be out of my house. Then I stood up and walked over to my stepdad, who had bought me a much-needed drink, and stayed with him until my ex left, still looking in shock. I knew he wouldn't approach me while I was with my stepdad, as he's always been a little scared of him. This is obviously a very condensed version of what happened. Once I got back to my mum's house, I had one single text from him saying he wasn't moving out and was going to contest the eviction until I'd come to my senses and got back with him. "We are not over," was how he ended the text. I just turned my phone off and decided to deal with the legal side of things on Monday. There was nothing else I could do. Saturday morning, I woke up and turned my phone back on and had another text from him saying that he would move out if I paid him £10,000, as that's what he'd paid towards bills whilst he had lived at the house. He paid for half of the electric, gas, Wi-Fi and Sky package. Note, the Sky package is only as expensive as it is because he has to have every sports channel known to man, so his half literally just paid for the sports channels. I'd already asked the solicitor about this though, and he'd assured me that I didn't owe him any money as he hadn't contributed to the mortgage or any renovation to the house. It was just general expenses. He also knew that I don't have £10,000 just lying around. Let's say I was irritated by this and decided to ring his mum to see if she could talk some sense into him. I'll call his mum S to make it easier. She was appalled by what I told her and said she would speak to him. She called me back about an hour later and asked me to meet her at the house. R was on an away day to watch his football team play and wouldn't be back till about 10 p.m, so I knew he wasn't there. I met her at the house with Kay, and S said that R's brother was on his way back home, and they would have R out by the following afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to R, just his brother, but she promised he would be out. S then asked me to walk her through the house, showing her exactly what was his and what wasn't, so he didn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The next morning, I got a text from R calling me all the names under the sun for getting his mum and brother involved. I blocked him, and a couple of hours later, S texted me to let me know he was out and staying with her. I thanked her, and she told me that she would like to stay in contact, and I happily agreed to this. I went back to my house after work on Monday, changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. My stepdad is also arranging for a friend of his to install cameras around the house. This will be done over the weekend. S rang me on Tuesday asking if we could meet up, and she had some things she wanted me to know. So we met for lunch that day. It was at this time that she told me that her ex was a controlling a-hole who was incredibly selfish, and the selfishness is what she'd seen in R for so long. That's why she'd commented on him being like his father, but she'd hoped that was the extent of R's attitude, and he hadn't picked up on his dad's controlling behaviour, which, to be fair, he hadn't up until this whole episode. She had left R's dad after he'd punched R's brother in the face when he was 14 and R was 10. He'd never laid a hand on her or their sons before, but one time was enough, and she left with the boys. To her knowledge, her ex had never reached out to speak to R or his brother, and they hadn't spoken to their father in years. I didn't know any of this. All I'd been told was that their dad wasn't in the picture, and hadn't been for a long time. But S had thought I knew, and that's why she hadn't told me before. However, she'd found out on Sunday night that R was back in contact with his father, and had been for the past year. His dad had been putting lots of thoughts into R's head about how he's the man of the house, and his family is all that matters. This had fed into R's selfish tendencies, and had amplified them tenfold. S said that she had told him to find somewhere else to stay ASAP, as she couldn't even look him in the face. Then R and his brother had a huge argument that ended with his brother telling him that as long as R is in touch with their dad, then he will have zero contact with him, even going so far as to tell him to spend Christmas with their dad because S is going to his house and R isn't welcome. When S took R's brother's side on all of this, R flew into a rage and said he would move in with his dad. He then left the house, but came back a couple of hours later looking like he'd been crying. Turns out that his dad doesn't want him living with him, and basically said he could be on the street for all he cares. He's not putting a roof over a grown man's head. S thinks that R is now starting to realise everything he's lost due to him listening to his dad, and has seen his dad's true colours. S is incredibly disappointed in him, but he's her son, so she is trying to be there for him as best as she can. However, she still wants him out as she doesn't trust him anymore. His brother still won't have anything to do with him. She's also told him to stay the hell away from me, as I don't need to be brought into this, and he has promised her that he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I do have him blocked on everything, and if he turns up to the house, I'll just call the police to get rid of him. The more S told me about what had been going on behind my back, the more resolute I've become about wanting nothing to do with him. I never want to see him again if I can help it. So all in all, R's life is a crap show, but as long as he stays away from me, then I don't care. I've been spending a lot of time with my sister and her wife as well, and my mum and stepdad, which has been great. I've never really been close to my stepdad, but this has brought us a lot closer together, which has been one huge positive out of all of this. I'm not exactly happy right now, but I'll get there. There's still a lot of feelings that I need to unpack, and it will take time to move on from this whole situation. I don't think I'll be dating for a while. I need to really get over all of this, and don't want to dump this on anyone else right now. For all those asking how Kay is doing, she's doing great. Had a hospital appointment on Monday, and her consultant said her eye is healing. In his words, marvellously, so that's a relief. Thank you to everyone that reached out to me. I hope there won't be any need to update this again, so this should be my final update. Wow, there you go. Yeah, it's always learned behaviour, either from parents or, some sort of role model in their life. Can't say I'm surprised, to be honest. Okay, Opie makes another post that's titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my ex that it's not my fault that he's homeless?" So I, 28 female, posted on relationship advice before about my now ex, 29 male. The post and update is in my profile, but basically my ex-fiancé wanted me to put his family before mine, even at the cost of my sister's health. I ended up breaking up with him over it, and he was forced to move in with his mum, who then found out that he'd been in touch with his abusive dad, who was twisting his view on how a relationship should work. Last I heard was that his mum was kicking him out, as she would not have anyone in her house that was in contact with her ex, and that he had tried to go live with his dad, but his dad had refused. I was completely no contact with him, so his mum was the one who had told me this. I'll call my ex R and ex's mum S to make things easier. I hadn't heard from R in weeks, but yesterday he showed up at my house. I had the chain on my door, so I opened it with that still attached. No way would I let him in. He basically told me that he had nowhere to live. His mum isn't speaking to him, and his dad won't put a roof over a grown man's head. His words, not mine. He asked if I would take him back, or at least let him live with me. No way in hell would I get back with him, and getting him out the first time only went easy because his mum stepped in to help. He had threatened to take me to court, knowing that if he did, it could take months to get him out, and then he said he would only move if I gave him £10,000. I contacted his mum, who was furious about that, and she turned up with his brother and forced him out. I told him that there was zero possibility of him ever living with me again, and that we were 100% over. He started shouting at me and calling me all sorts of names, so I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave and shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I caught everything he did and said on camera, and have saved it to a USB just in case. He then went crying to all our mutual friends, and it managed to get back to his mum. She called me and asked what happened. I told her, she then informed me that she'd put her house up for sale and was moving 300 miles away to be nearer to her other son. Her and R had a huge argument about this, and she finally kicked him out. Since then he's been couch surfing, but with Christmas coming up, his friends aren't really happy with having him on their couches when they have kids and are meant to be enjoying the festive season. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. She then told me I was right to refuse him, but I've since had other friends say that they feel sorry for them, and that I can just let him stay in my spare room until he's back on his feet. I then asked them to put him up, but then they said they won't because they don't have a room, and if they had a spare room like me, then they would let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself with what a couple of my friends have said. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edit. Just a quick edit as I'm going to bed. I've just spoken with the wife of one of R's friends, and she's asked to meet me on my lunch break tomorrow. Apparently R stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than what I know of. She's going to tell me the full story tomorrow, but told me that I shouldn't have let him anywhere near me, and that he's staying in an Airbnb so he does at least have a roof over his head right now. I'll try and update after I've spoken to her. Oh wow, I wonder what that could be. Let's go to the comments. I think it's telling that nobody in his family wants to deal with him. That's a pretty good sign you shouldn't either. Not the a-hole. OP replies, he was really close to his family until a few months ago. His dad was abusive to his mum and brother, so they refused to have anything to do with him or anyone that's in contact with him. Since they found out that R is back in contact with him, they've basically shut him out. I get the feeling that he's starting to turn into his dad, and that's something that his family refused to have around them. His brother had gone full no contact with him. It's R's own fault at the end of the day, so I have very little sympathy for him in that regard. Not the a-hole. You're lucky to get out when you did. File for a restraining order. Not sure if it's called the same in the UK. As soon as possible. OP replies, restraining orders here are ridiculously hard to get. There usually has to be violence involved for one to be issued. I'm going to make sure I log everything from now on though. Yeah, like that first comment said, yeah, it's definitely very telling that nobody wants to deal with him. Not his friends or his family. I mean, it's sad, but like OP said, at the end of the day, it's his fault. I wonder what happened at the friend's house. Let's find out in the next update. So I posted yesterday about my ex turning up at my house, wanting for me to let him move back in with me. I said no, but a couple of friends thought I should let him, and that messed with my head. R is my ex. A few people told me to change my locks, etc. I did that and changed my alarm code, as well as my stepdad got his friend to put up 4 cameras around my house. I'm also going to start shutting the gate so that no one can walk up to the house without ringing the bell there first. I put in an edit that I was going to meet with one of R's friends' wives for lunch today, and I have to say that it was informative for sure. I'll call her N, 30 female, and her husband, Z, 29 male. So I went to meet her on my lunch break at a cafe near my work. It's a place that a lot of my co-workers go to, and I know the staff there as well. A few Redditors thought that she might bring R with her, so I wanted it to be somewhere I feel comfortable and have backup if needed. Turns out that I didn't need to bother about that. When I got to the cafe, N was there on her own. I grabbed some lunch and a drink and sat with her. We went through the usual small talk before she started telling me what had been going on. R rang Z on Thursday morning saying he had nowhere to go and could he stay with them for a few days. Z spoke to N, and they agreed he could stay in their guest room. R went to their house after work, and they had a long talk where R told them that he has a flat lined up but can't move until January. Z and N agreed to let him live with them until January, as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like no bringing women back there, and if he went out drinking he had to be quiet when he got back so he didn't wake their daughter who's 6. He agreed to all of this and paid for a Chinese for them all that night. The next day after work, R went to meet his dad in the pub for a few pints. When Z and N went to bed, R still wasn't home. They were woken up at about 2 in the morning by R arguing with a woman. Apparently R had met this woman in a bar, took her back to Z and N's house, got his pleasure, and then told her to get dressed and F off once he was done. She'd gotten angry, which started an argument where R was saying some horrific crap to her. N took the woman downstairs and got her a taxi, whilst Z stayed upstairs, arguing with R. Once N had gotten rid of the woman, she went back upstairs and tried to calm Z and R down. At this point, R decided to take out his frustrations on N, calling her a B and telling her to do something useful and make him a sandwich, before bursting out laughing like he'd made the funniest joke ever. This made Z lose it and pinned R to the wall by his throat. Side note, R isn't a fighter at all, whereas Z was an amateur boxer in his youth and can handle himself well. N managed to get Z to let him go, and R was shoved into the guest room and told to sleep off his alcohol. It's a miracle that N's daughter didn't wake up during this. The next morning, N got their daughter ready and went to her mum's after telling Z to get R out of their house. Z agreed, and after N left, he woke up R and told him to pack his crap and leave. R tried to apologise and begged to stay, but Z was having none of it and kicked him out. Going off the timing, I think he left there and came straight to my house. On Sunday, Z texted R to meet up so they could speak, and they met up in a pub. Z has been friends with R since they were 11, and has never seen him act like he has been doing, so he wanted to find out what's really going on. He managed to finally get the truth out of R. Basically, R has been in contact with his dad for a lot longer than he told us. By this point, it's over 2 years. His dad is a raging misogynist that believes a woman's place is in the kitchen and bedroom. A man's place is to rule the house and be waited on hand and foot, as well as deciding who can and can't be in their lives. He's been dripping this poison into R's ear, and it's really taken a hold of him. Z told N that he just doesn't recognise R anymore. R wants to start living his life the way his father has told him he should. When Z pointed out that R's dad is 62, living in a crappy one-bedroom flat, not had a real relationship since R's mum left him, has no friends, his family doesn't speak to him, and that he's the type of guy that when he walks into a pub, people finish their pints so they can leave and get away from him, R was furious. He told Z that his dad is just misunderstood. Z responded that people understood his dad, and that's why they stayed away from him. He's toxic. This pretty much ended their conversation, and R left. Z did find out that R does have a flat lined up for January, so that was true, and that he's found a B&B he can stay until the flat is ready at a minimal cost. Z and N have also decided to go no contact with R, as they don't need that toxicity around them, but especially not around their daughter. A few Redditors had said it sounded like R was on drugs, so I asked N what she thought, and she doesn't think so, but can't be sure. She and Z think that R is just so far under his dad's thumb now that he's completely changed as a person. He believes that everything his dad says is gospel. She did let me know that R has a burner Instagram account that he is using to check on my Instagram, and I immediately made my account private. He had said something about seeing me waste money on a stupid amount of Christmas presents when I couldn't even help him out to Z on Sunday. I'd been to a Christmas market on Saturday afternoon and had posted pics on Instagram. All of this just made my resolve stronger that he will not be getting anywhere near my house again. It also made me realise that I don't have any feelings for him anymore, other than frustration at how he's acting, and some sadness at how far he's fallen from the man I once knew. I thought that hearing he had another woman in his bed would annoy me, but there was just nothing. I couldn't have cared less. I thanked Anne for the info, and we agreed to keep in touch. We won't be as close as we were when I was with R, but it feels good to have someone who knows the entire situation and has seen R's behaviour with his own eyes. There were also some Redditors that told me to ditch the friends that had told me to let him stay with me. Unfortunately, I can't ditch them completely, as they're part of the friend group, and that would just cause unnecessary drama, but I will be keeping my distance from them and only talking to them when part of the group. I'm currently at my sister's and we're going to watch a Christmas film to get us in the mood to decorate all of our house this weekend, so I'll be on and off for the next few hours if anyone has any questions. Thanks for the votes and giving me some perspective. Reddit isn't all bad. Okie dokie folks, and that's the end of that story. Yeah, honestly, it baffles me that people like R can look at someone like his dad and think that they're doing life correctly. Like what Z said, his dad is some like alcoholic, lives by himself, has no family, no one talks to him, and yet R thinks that he isn't doing anything wrong. Like maybe think about the way you treat people first. Like, isn't that obvious? Honestly, the cause and effect of this thing is so deep, and like you can look at things like social media and the Andrew Tate type's revolution that's kind of normalized this behavior, and it seems to sink its teeth into, vulnerable, depressed young males particularly, but any sort really. I mean, I don't know exactly R's family dynamic when his dad left, but I almost think this could stem from a deprivation of, a father figure in his teenage years, his formative years. He grew up without a dad at a time where he needed him the most, and he just craved that kind of mentor in his life. And now that he finally has him and he's back in contact with his dad, he just kind of takes everything he says as gospel. I don't know, there's a lot of tricky things at play here. Let me know what you guys think about this one down in the comments. Am I the a-hole for calling my mother-in-law on my fiancé? My fiancé, male 22, was injured over a month ago and had surgery to correct things literally 2 days after the accident. I, 21 female, have been by his side the entire time. I've more or less become his caregiver. In the last month, I've taken over the role of keeping our house together. I cook all the meals, I take care of the pets, I stay up all night to tend to his endless needs, I take him to the bathroom, I've been working remote, I haven't left the house for more than an hour since the accident, aside from taking him to and from appointments. I'm not saying this to complain. I'm grateful that my life allows me to support him the way I have. My problem is his attitude. He was given very strong painkillers for the first 2 weeks after surgery. He had to extend his time on them and recently stopped taking them in the last week. When he was taking them, he thanked me, told me how much he loved me, apologized at every step, though he didn't need to. Without the meds, he doesn't seem to see that I'm helping him. Every dish I bring him is the wrong one. He'll yell for me, and when I come, he'll tell me to F off. If he's in pain, he expects me to fix it. I'm exhausted. I can't do anything right, and it's wearing on me. I haven't slept in weeks. I haven't seen a friend or family member in way too long. I can't even be on the phone for more than 10 minutes without it being an issue. After days of what turned into verbal abuse, I called my mother-in-law. I told her everything as soon as I saw he was asleep. I cried for about 15 minutes. I felt terrible unloading on her like that, but I had so much built-up frustration I just couldn't stop. She was very supportive on the phone, let me know I wasn't wrong to feel like that, and let me cry. After hearing everything, she was furious and ended our call to talk to her son. She tore him a new a-hole. I heard him trying to defend himself through the door, but it was mostly just stammering. She flew up yesterday and put me in a nice hotel. I haven't heard much from my fiancé since I left, but as I was leaving, he was yelling at me for calling his mum. He said he didn't want to marry someone who couldn't be there for him in sickness. I told him I loved him and I was sorry. I'm just so tired. He didn't care, just told me to go, and his mum could do a better job for him than I ever could. So now I'm in my way too nice hotel room, feeling like a major a-hole. I need to know if I'm wrong here. Edit. He began waning off 2 weeks ago and became fully dependent on over-the-counter medication this week. He did not stop taking them cold turkey. His doctors were heavily involved too, due to previous drug abuse. Edit 2. Mother-in-law is taking him back to their hometown once they can get flights together. I'll stay in this hotel until then. Fiancé doesn't want to talk yet, and to be honest, I don't blame him. He knows what's coming and that I'm ticked. I'll go visit him in a week, so I have until then to decide how I want to move forward. My mother called last night about a venue she found in my hometown, and I told her what's going on. She doesn't want to spend a bunch of money on a pending divorce, so we're stepping back from planning. Not much more to add. I'm excited to see my pets and be able to sleep in my own bed. I'm going to try to make my sister fly to my state so I can have some company. That's pretty much it. I'm in serious awe about how I let my life get like this, but oh well. Today will be better. Okay, on to some comments. Not the a-hole. You've gone above and beyond. In sickness and in health does not mean never needing a break. It doesn't mean accepting abuse. Can you break up with a fiancé and keep the mother-in-law? She sounds great. You just got a taste of your life together, a real behind the scenes. You've done nothing wrong here, and I would urge you to take this time away to reflect on your relationship and what you want moving forward, not the a-hole. I've been with my hubby for 17 years. I've been tattling on him for at least 15. I go to his mum when he's being unreasonable because unlike my own, she will still love him. I think it's great you went to his mum for 2 reasons. 1, while she may be mad at him, it's not going to change the fact that she loves him. Your family and friends would be more likely to change their viewpoints of him. 2, it's so awesome that you have the type of relationship with his mum that you could go cry to her. As previously stated, ditch him but keep her. She sounds like a winner, not the a-hole. Opie answers some questions. Is it withdrawal? He behaves like this frequently when in pain, just never to this degree. I can promise you that he's been wanged off and would tell me if that's what he's feeling. I've seen him go through much worse withdrawals when we first met, and this isn't that. He is lashing out on me in pain, which I get. I was the only person around. He has a history of drug abuse. I took administration of the pills very seriously. Due to his history, we worked very closely with his psychiatric team and the orthopedic to make his waning off period as easy as possible. I should have put that in the post, but he did not stop cold turkey. Is this abnormal behaviour? He has what some would call a short fuse, especially with me. Him saying hurtful remarks to me or just blatantly putting me down is not necessarily uncommon and is something we're working on. Prior to this, he would apologise and make it up to me. Now, even when I'm in tears, he'll just keep laying on insults. Opie has thoughts later that day. Being away and able to process the last month of my life has been eye-opening. I couldn't imagine trying to care for a child under conditions like that. I couldn't imagine how frustrated I would be. His injury is in his arm. He can walk, he can use his left dominant hand. I understand that he is in pain and it's awful, but I have had a friend with much worse injuries help us move. I'm thinking about returning my ring. Quick update in the comments. I've returned. My last night in the hotel, I called my parents to make a plan and it didn't go well. I'm home with my fiancé again. He won't talk to me except to bark orders at me. I'm hoping I can move out within a month or 2. Surgery and recovery are expensive and we've been living on my income for some time and I'm pretty broke, but I'm keeping my head up and I'm confident I can get myself out. Someone asks, why didn't he go with his mum? I know she pushed for him to go home, but he's a very stubborn boy. Thank you, I'll be okay. Okay, now for a big update about 3 weeks later. I went home 2 days after posting. Things were sad. My mother-in-law had cleaned, but the energy in the house was a bummer. The first thing he said to me when I got back was, I'm glad you're back. Can you make me a snack? There was no apology, no accountability, just a task. He only talked to me when he needed something. His attitude was worsening. My mother-in-law took the rest of his prescribed opiates, so I knew he wasn't using. The weekend following the mother-in-law debacle, my wonderful fiancé told me he had friends coming to stay for the weekend. 2-hour heads up, didn't ask. I sighed and made up the guest room. His friend and friend's girlfriend came to stay. During this stay, my fiancé bought me flowers, got out of bed daily, took me out, and let me call my parents unsupervised. The day they left, he was back to bed with a crappy attitude. I wish I could say I'm in my own apartment with my pets and a bottle of rosé that's just for me, or with my girlfriends that I haven't seen in months. Unfortunately, I'm writing this on the couch while I listen to the music that are his endless demands. However, I do have a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm scared to leave him in person, but he's leaving the country for a month in April. My sister lives abroad and I'm working on getting to her during that month. It's a process, especially with pets. I look forward to getting there. My mother hasn't spoken to me since I told her I was returning the ring because that's not what we do. We clean our messes. But I have my father's unwavering support. I'll miss my mother-in-law, but I deserve that kindness and understanding from my partner, not his mother. I have stopped forcing myself to find the joy in his presence, and it's helping me fuel my drive to get out of there. I may update again when I get to my sister's, but don't be surprised if I do my best to put this chapter behind me. Thanks for the kind words. I hope you all get the love and hugs you need. Now for some more comments. Why isn't he with his mum? Well, mother-in-law was planning on taking him. He refused. Things got very bad since I posted this. I'm currently in my childhood room at my father's, decently hungover, and I'm officially a single lady. About calling her parents unsupervised. I called my sister once when I was scared of him a while back. She called the police. He liked to be in the room when I was talking to family following that incident, so I didn't say anything dramatic. I should have seen how bad it was. Typing that out just feels gross. More about what happened. I don't want to get too into it, but we had a bad night. It ended with me locked on the balcony. I still have some bruising. I was able to call my father on my watch and we made a plan to get me home the next morning. Are you and your pets safe? Yep, I'm with my dad now. My pets are. They aren't in my arms yet, but I should get them back in the next week. Okay, now for another update. It's been some time and I finally feel comfortable enough with my situation to update you all. My pets and I are safely with my father. We've been here a couple weeks and things are going well. I'm working remote but also searching for a new position closer to my hometown so I can still have a social life. My animals are adapting to life without their dad and I'm doing my best to join them. My ex and I were high school sweethearts. I've been through most major life events with him. There's only a small fraction of my life as an adult that I've been through without him. Leaving was really hard. I'm still second guessing myself, but I recently realized that by not enabling his crappy behavior, I really am helping him. He went on his planned trip and I took that opportunity to get everything I needed from our shared home and made arrangements going forward for my lease. He took his trip as an opportunity to reflect on his behavior within our relationship, specifically the last year. He's pretty disappointed in himself. It seems that the company he was on vacation with helped to hold a pretty clear mirror to his face and he was really unhappy with what he saw. I feel bad he's really having a hard time with his self-awareness, but I do really appreciate the accountability that has been accompanied. I'd like to add that I don't hold any resentment towards him. I am hurt and disappointed in the way he felt he could treat me, but I don't hate him. I was sad to hear how upset he was with himself, though a little relieved I wasn't being painted as the crazy ex I was sure he would paint me as. Since getting home, he started therapy and is looking for a new sponsor. We talk about once a week so he can see his pets. I also do not mind the positive updates. When we talk, it's respectful. There's still a lot of love, but I've set boundaries that keep him from hounding me about our relationship. I have also started a new therapy. This is my first serious breakup and the aftershock is real. It's hard to lose your best friend, future husband, and father of your fur babies in one go. I am confident, however, that this is essential to both of our growth. I'm happy that we can have a respectful, albeit small relationship. Who knows what the future holds, but for now, I'm doing my best to be content with this new independence, and grateful my life can go through roadblocks and I can get through easily, thanks to my amazing support system. I still haven't spoken with my mother. That will be much later, and I'll be requiring a serious apology. I love my mum, but I'm not going to stand for her demanding I make really unhealthy choices to appease her, and so she doesn't have to be embarrassed by my broken home, ? I mean, come on man, I'm 21. My broken little tyke's home, let's be real. I'm young and smart and pretty, and I have a really good kind life in my future. Thank you for helping me not settle for comfortable. I hope I never have to update again, and I hope you're all having a really good Friday. Yeah, man, I forgot Opie was 21. She's really young. And yeah, the warning signs were there, but you can kind of forgive her for not seeing them, being how young she is. And look, the husband was definitely a piece of work, but it sounds like he's doing his best to improve himself. Alright, a quick comment and then some more updates. One commenter says, "It's good his behaviour is improving, but don't rejoin the relationship." Opie says, "Absolutely. I'm pleased to see progress, period. I have no intentions of rejoining that relationship. I'm just really happy that he's also getting a new start that is positive, and I'm proud of him for taking it seriously and getting the help he needs. I was fully expecting self-destruction while blaming me, and instead he's owning up to his mistakes and trying to do better for himself." Okay, now for another update. I left out of my last post my final interaction with my ex. It didn't seem too important at the time, but we had a final hookup the last time I saw him. I am now pregnant. This was my biggest fear while with him, having a child and being solely responsible for them. I am now in that exact position. I told my ex a couple days after I found out. I assured him that this changes nothing about our relationship, but as he is the father, he has the right to be involved in the conversation. He declared he is moving to my hometown and he will be the best goddamn father you've ever seen. I have my doubts. I'm full of anxiety. I've barely learned how to treat myself correctly. I want my kid to be so beyond loved. I want my child to have everything in the world and more. I don't know how to do that on my own. I'm encouraged to see my ex making big boy steps to be a part of our kid's life, but I'm also cautious he's doing all this to get back in my good graces. I can't be a mum to my ex and my future child. I can't fall back into the same dynamic that made me leave. I'm doing what I can to stay strong and hold my ground, but then he sends flowers, or a massage certificate, or a bump box. Every gift, every check-in text, and every mention of our baby gets me closer to going back to him. I don't really know why I'm posting this. I guess it's cathartic to get this all down and out in my own words. It's hard to write your own narrative in your words in a small gossipy hometown. It's hard to be pregnant and single, but the hardest thing is telling your father that you're expecting, no matter how old you are. I know we'll be okay. I'm already trying everything in my power to be a good mum already. I'm trying to be respectful to everyone I can regarding this situation, but damn, it's tough. Anyway, that's my ramble. I doubt anyone reads these anymore, lol, but I'm glad I said it. One commenter asks, "Are you sure you want to be tied to him for the rest of your life? Because that's what this baby will do." Opie replies, "No, I'm not. I'm not too sure about much right now. I do know that I already love this baby more than I can say. I know that he loves our baby already too, and that's all I really care about. His mum is good at reining him in, and I have to believe that things are going to be okay." Wow, onto another update. My mum and I have always had a rocky relationship. I went to live with my dad as soon as I could decide, and kept my contact minimal. After high school, I moved away for college and for a good job with my ex. My mum followed me to my new city and we tried to rebuild our relationship. Unfortunately, I got scared of the choices I made when I was with her, so I went back to low contact and she moved back to my hometown. Unfortunately, recently my life turned upside down. Long story short, my boyfriend and I broke up, I moved home with my dad and got a new, better job. Then I found out I was pregnant. My dad has a full house and I made the decision to move to my mother's guest house for my pregnancy so I can save more money for the baby and move out once they're around 2 months old. The timeline works for my finances and I figured, since I'm just on her property, not main house, it might be easy to keep a low profile. How naive. After work, daily, she comes over to check on me. She hasn't failed to offer me an alcoholic beverage. Not once since I moved in. She chain smokes right outside my bedroom daily and she stays late. I know it's her home. I know that she's very kind to have me here, but I'm growing a person right now. I'm preparing myself for motherhood. Single motherhood. I work long demanding hours. I'm stressed and isolated. I would love a freaking drink, but I'm pregnant. I can't drink. The time I brought it up, I was screamed at, and she asked me to leave in the morning. It was really upsetting and stressful. I feel like she comes here to bait me into picking a fight so she can pull every power play to make me feel small. So anyway, Mum, I love you, but frick man, I'm trying to give our entire family a healthy new friend. I'm trying to re-establish myself as an adult in the town that I was a child in. I'm trying to do better for myself and my baby. Please respect that for me. Please respect that enough for your grandchild. I love you. Please, try to love me. Man, how unfortunate that Opie has to cry for help like this for her own mother. Let's go to the final update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while. My life has flipped me in every direction, but I'm finally in a place where I'm happy and confident enough in my situation and decisions to loop my internet friends in. I started a new job several months ago. It was up my alley and amazing pay. I was living with my mother in order to save up during my pregnancy, but once I started my job, I immediately moved out. Besides the pay and the career boost, I found very meaningful relationships within the company. I met a group of co-workers on my first day that I was immediately attracted to. They are adventurous and kind, outgoing people. I started building my relationships with them, and eventually they became some of the closest people to me. They've been supportive of all my struggles from this year, and I would not have been able to get through my miscarriage without all the love they've given to me. I miscarried in my second trimester. It was hell. I've never been more upset with my body. I felt I had failed my child. There was nothing I could do to take that pain away. It still breaks my heart on a daily basis, but I've been getting through it and a little stronger every day. My ex lost his mind when he found out. He said I took his family from him, and he would never forgive me. He threatened to sue for emotional distress I had caused him. It was unbelievable. The month after my miscarriage, I started seeing one of my new work friends. He's a bit older than me, and is everything I've ever wanted. He is quite literally the opposite of my ex. He cooks and cleans, he makes me feel beautiful and smart, and all the things my ex would say I wasn't. I found a new version of myself this year. I've made good friends who support me every day. I've found things I love to do, and I've been able to restart hobbies I gave up in favour of my ex. I found a person who makes me want to do better every day. I know this is long, so I'll wrap it up. I've never been happier in my life. I know it's dumb to say, but I genuinely thank Reddit for this. It was hard to read some comments, but it gave the strength and understanding I needed to stop settling for someone who didn't care about me. I truly hope this is the last time any of you will see a post from me. Thank you all. Now for some final comments to wrap this up. This is going to sound awful, but the miscarriage was a blessing in disguise. 4 months later and she's found an older guy who makes life seem more reasonable. I feel like Opie hasn't learned enough yet. Frickin' hell, I know abused people see things differently, and only time and space will let them see things for what they are, but Jesus Christ. Yeah, something tells me Opie's not quite out of the blue yet. It's good that she's feeling happy though. I don't know about you guys, but that entire time I was expecting her to go back to her ex. Thank God she didn't. But let's hope this new guy is actually genuinely a decent person. Anyway, that's the end of that story. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. My soon-to-be ex-husband humiliated me on our wedding day and met his karma instantly. It has been 2 days since my wedding day. I'd already been with him for 4 years, 1 year of which I was engaged. It all started a few months earlier when I noticed my husband Jake watching prank videos. Among other things, these videos showed embarrassing photos of the bride being played on a projector in front of the whole room, or the bride's face being smashed into the cake. I told him straight away that I didn't want anything like that at our wedding. He just laughed and said that he wasn't planning anything like that. I thought that was the end of it, but I kept catching him making strange arrangements with his friends. He suddenly wanted to choose the wedding photographer and the cake. I thought nothing of it and was just glad that he was helping me with the wedding preparations. Nevertheless, I reminded him the day before that if he did something like that, I would break up with him immediately. When the day of the wedding came, everything went smoothly until the ceremony. Until the moment came, the cake was to be cut. The whole room watched as I made the first cut, and the photographer stood in front of us with camera in hand. Suddenly, I felt a hand on the back of my head pushing me face first into the cake. Not only my makeup, but the whole wedding dress was ruined, and the whole room laughed, my husband the loudest. At that moment, the photographer took the photo, and Jake said that this was now our wedding photo. I turned around, slapped him in the face, and ran out of the room in tears. Thank God karma didn't take long to arrive, and came in the form of his own brother. I ran to the toilet and started crying when I suddenly heard loud shouting from the hall. It was his brother Frank. I could barely understand what he was saying, and when I left the toilet he was waiting for me. He told me that Jake had something to tell me. Jake was shaking and apologized without looking me in the eye. Frank told him to look me in the eye and apologize again. Even I was a bit scared of Frank at that moment, because I'd always thought of him as a kind and gentle man. I'd never seen him angry before. Jake apologized again, and then Frank led us back into the hall, which was suddenly very quiet, and most of our families looked down at the floor, a little embarrassed. The festivities were cut short, and I was taken home by Frank because I was too angry with my husband, and I didn't want to see him. During the ride, Frank apologized for blowing up like that. He explained that my husband was horrible even back when he was a brother, and used every special occasion to humiliate Frank. When it was Frank's birthday, my husband would throw his cake at him and break his presents, but back then their parents always brushed it all off by saying that's just how brothers behave, so he had to endure every humiliation. But when he saw my husband bury my face into the cake, he was fed up because he realized that my husband was just a bad person who got his satisfaction from humiliating others. I asked Frank if he thought it would be an exaggeration if I separated from my husband, and he said no, because according to him, I deserved better, and he didn't care how his brother felt about it because he had brought it on himself. Then he told me that if I needed help collecting my things, he would help me and gave me his number. And I decided to separate from him and file for divorce, and informed Jake and my family about it. Jake just told me not to do that because it was just a harmless prank. I was spammed by both his family and mine that it would be ridiculous to end our marriage over this, but I see it differently. If he does something like this to me, despite multiple requests not to do it, even after promising he wouldn't do it, then I can't trust him, no matter what he promises me. I have to assume that the opposite can and will happen, and that he doesn't care at all how I feel about his decisions. This situation can be projected onto so many much worse situations where it would be important for me to be able to trust him. His brother Frank seems to be the only one who supports me now, and I'll go through with the divorce. Call me humorless, call me what you want, but I've given my reasons. Yeah, at that point it's less about the action itself and it's more about the fact that, Opie said she can't trust him anymore. Also, she warned him, what did he expect to happen? That she was just going to laugh it off? God, what an idiot. Alright, let's go to the comments. OP, I'm sorry this happened, but so proud of you. You warned him multiple times and he felt it was more important to get laughs than be a trustworthy partner. I don't know why people think humiliation is a prank. If you have to explain that it was a joke, it's not funny. Best of luck. P.S. Please let Frank know he's a good man and we appreciate him having your back. He lied and was disrespectful. Obviously not the things you want in a marriage. Divorcing him now will save you from dealing with more boundaries being broken and the heartache. You deserve better. If it's been only a few days since the wedding, don't file the marriage certificate. Can't you just rip it up like it never happened? Okay, let's see an update. Many of you asked for an update, so here it is. Read the original post if you haven't already done that. Many of you pointed out that I could get an annulment. Don't ask me why I didn't think of this earlier, but after you guys pointed it out, I planned on doing that. Haven't done it yet, but it will happen the next few weeks. It will probably be much more easier than a divorce. With that being said, what happens now? So a day after I wrote the original post, I went to Jake's apartment to get my stuff. I slept over at my best friend's house in the meanwhile. Of course, I also took up Frank's offer to help me getting my stuff. When we arrived there, he pleaded with me that it was just a prank, and he didn't mean to hurt me. But the only thing I could think about is how he broke my trust before, and how I couldn't trust him now if he told me it didn't mean to hurt me. When he saw Frank, his face turned red, and he yelled at Frank and accused him of poisoning me against him. Don't worry, Jake, you did this yourself. He argued with Frank for a while, and Frank confronted him with everything he did to him during his childhood. He told Frank to grow a pair, and that he should forget about what happened back then. Ironic when he's the one who never changed, and is just as bad as before. He constantly tried to talk to me, but Frank stood in his way and talked over him, and when we left I saw how he angrily smashed the door. Apparently he now spreaded lies to his family that Frank tried to steal me from him. Luckily I was able to see who he really was before it was too late. What a coincidence that after this incident my family spammed me with messages as well as about how we should talk to a therapist instead of breaking up over this. They only stopped when I threatened to cut them off too. I also didn't plan to share this with you, but so many people suggested it that I thought I could at least ask him, so after we got my stuff, I asked Frank out, but he rejected me, telling me that he's already dating someone else. I just wanted to tell you this so you can stop asking. But honestly, I'm also kind of glad this was his answer, because it means he didn't just help me because there was a malicious intent behind it, but more because he is simply a good person. Regardless, I told him about my post here, and Frank told me he read many of your comments. He said he liked your comments and that you made his day. I thought you might want to know this. This is probably the first and last update of this. I just want to get this behind me and look forward. But thank you all for your support. Edit. If you want to call my story fake because I asked Frank out, feel free. I just acted on what many of you asked me to do, and I thought to myself that asking him once doesn't hurt anyone, and maybe it would lead to a much healthier relationship if he said yes. I'm not in the best state of mind and will now leave this account, so don't be surprised if I don't respond anymore. My story will stay here and hopefully raise awareness for many people who are in similar situations with toxic partners, no matter if they're male or female. I wish you all the best. Okay folks, and that's the end of that one. Yeah, a little bit weird that she asked the brother out as well, but I kind of understand the reasoning behind it. He seems like a great guy. I can't help but feel though by doing that, and particularly if he said yes, it would only add more weight to the fire and just make things more complicated. Like Opie mentioned that her ex was spreading lies about his brother taking her from him, so by doing that it's really only going to confirm that story to the other family members. I don't know, just probably not a good idea. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Either way, we'll move on to our next story. Okay, we're on the relationship subreddit. This one was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, I won 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. My girlfriend is very upset that I'm taking my brother and not her. A couple days ago, I won a trivia contest that gave me an all-expense-paid trip for two to the Super Bowl. As you could imagine, I was so excited, but it's gotten to the point where I wish there was a way I could sell the package and forget about it. My brother and I were together and decided to try for tickets from this local contest. I was the official contestant, but I actually ended up getting the answer I needed from my brother. From that point, I never even thought about who to take, since it was something we both did, and he ended up actually giving me the answer. Of course he was going to go. I excitedly told my girlfriend, who didn't even know I was trying, that I won tickets and I was going with my brother. She then got very upset that I'm not taking her. For the record, she is a football fan, so it's clear she would love to go, but my brother gave me the answer. How could he not go? My brother said he would understand if I take her and sees the problem that this is causing for me, and offered his ticket to her. I didn't even tell her that he made this offer, because I don't think that's the point. I think she's being selfish and putting a damper on the entire experience. I told her all this, but she's not backing down and said that if you win a trip for two, it should automatically go to your significant other. Maybe that's true if it were on a romantic getaway or cruise, but this is something my brother and I did together, and he's the reason I won. I think she's being selfish and she thinks I'm being inconsiderate of her. I don't know who is right or what to do. I wish I never won these tickets because no matter what happens, the entire experience has been marred. I thought of giving the tickets to my brother and his wife and just forgetting about the whole thing, but because I won the tickets under my name, it has to be me. How should I handle this? Let's go to the comments. You didn't win the tickets. You and your brother won the tickets. The other ticket is his, not yours to do with. Tell her that. Opie replies, I wish I'd said this when I told her, but I didn't think it would be an issue. I don't think I could reframe it at this point without her seeing through it. She already knows the story. What's there to see through? Give her the play-by-play. This was pertinent information from the beginning. Being thorough means she gets all the information and gets to a well-informed analysis of the situation. Knowledge is power. Opie replies, She knew from the start my brother gave me the answer. She knows we did it together. She knows I already invited my brother. She also knows that the tickets are under my name and that I could theoretically choose someone else, which is the window she needed to make a fuss about how it should be her. I don't think I could reason with someone who said, if your brother wanted to go, he should have won them himself. Rock in a hard place. Does your girlfriend even like football? If not, why the hell does she want to go? Best plan would be to give up your ticket and have your brother and wife go. OP says, I stated this in the post. She does like football, so she'd have a great time. I actually would love to give them the tickets to put this mess behind me, but the tickets are non-transferable. If I don't go, no one does. If I don't go, no one does, then go and have a great time with your brother. Your girlfriend is entirely in the wrong here. Yeah, to be honest, I'd have to agree. I'm more in the camp of the girlfriend's being a little bit selfish here. Let's go to an update. Thanks everyone for the advice. It was very helpful. This was a very stressful and long few days. I'm just glad there seems to be a resolution. I had tried talking to my girlfriend and she was still clearly upset. I approached the conversation, as many people said, keeping an understanding that she was more disappointed than controlling and would come around. Unfortunately, she was being unreasonable. She said I could go, but that doing so would hurt her a great deal and that she would need some time to reevaluate things. I should have just ended things with her there, but I was so sick of these tickets by this point that I didn't even have the heart to go, even if I did decide to end things with her. As suggested by some of the comments here, I called up the radio station and asked if it was at all possible to transfer the tickets to my brother so he could go with his wife. They were totally understanding and awesome about it and said they were sorry I couldn't go, but they were glad to put the tickets in my brother's name for me. I was just glad to have it behind me at that point. I told my girlfriend what I did and that I was staying here, and she said that I was being dramatic and immature. She said that I transferred the tickets to my brother just so I could win the argument and look like a martyr. It was at this point I reached my breaking point. I calmly told her this relationship was over. I wasn't even mad at this point, just confused that a person I thought I knew could act this way. She said she was going to break up with me because of the way I handled this anyway, so breaking up with her didn't matter. My brother immediately told me I dodged a bullet and glad that she was out of everyone's lives. My brother's wife was totally cool about me using her ticket and didn't even question it, even after I'm technically taking back my gift to her. They insisted that I go with my brother, and it was their idea. So now I'm the guest of my original tickets that I won. Happy to say I arrived in SF a few days ago, and I'm having the time of my life. My girlfriend didn't unfollow me on social media, and I'm posting as many pictures as I possibly can. Thanks everyone. Wow, so either that girl was really upset that she couldn't go to the football game, or there were some other underlying issues that kind of rose to the surface here. I think I'm going to go with the latter. What do you guys think? Let me know. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're jumping over to the Am I Wrong subreddit. This one was written by user PrivateLiving123, and it's titled, Am I wrong for making a depressed friend homeless for my own comfort? In November, a friend, 28 male, mentioned that he was currently homeless and alternating between living with his sister and her big family in a trailer and his car with his cat. I, 31 female, offered to let him live in my storage room and spare bedroom to get back on his feet. There was no rent or utilities discussed. He's never paid a dime. Him staying here has always been understood to be a temporary thing, but no actual time limit had been discussed. He's been a very considerate roommate. He stays in his room most of the time, he cleans up his messes, he's polite, etc., and I absolutely cannot stand living with him. I've lived alone since I was 19, and I hate having someone else in my private space. I thought I'd be okay, but I'm tense and on edge all the time listening for his footsteps, breathing, anything. I had a very abusive childhood, and until I moved into my own apartment, I was never safe at home. I get unreasonably annoyed at the tiniest, pettiest things. I want my house back. I want to make soup and French toast at 3 a.m. I want to vacuum at 10 p.m. Super petty crap like that. However, he has nowhere to go. He's getting a student loan check in 2 weeks, but other than that, he has no income. Rent is through the roof and we live in a housing desert. When I moved out at 19, I paid $780 for a one-bedroom apartment by myself. He's looking at over $1,200 for an apartment of the same size. I genuinely think he won't be able to afford or qualify for any apartment in town, and he hasn't done anything really wrong to me. I'm just neurotic. Would I be the a-hole for telling him I'd like him to leave by the 1st of February? How about the 1st of March? Oh gee, I tell you what, I've actually been in this exact same situation, and honestly, any decision's not easy. Let's go to the comments. You helped him despite it causing you stress and anxiety. It's never easy to do what's right for you. You treated him like a human being and gave him plenty of notice. You're offering him plenty of notice, which is nice of you. Perhaps you could help him understand the expenses he can expect when he gets his own place by helping you with your monthly accounts. You're not wrong. He's not your burden to carry. You've done more than enough, so have no guilt. I was in the same situation once. I offered up my spare room, and we also didn't agree on a time frame. In my mind, I thought they'd be looking at a new accommodation ASAP, and I would just offer them an interim solution. I have the same issues with my own personal space as you have, and unfortunately it led to some tension, which was not their fault at all. But they were working from home and I had some free time and just couldn't relax. When I realized that they hadn't even looked at new accommodation, I started dropping hints, but that didn't work. I had to spell it out. I didn't kick them out, but told them that I didn't see this as a long-term solution, as I had from the beginning, and they also knew about it, and that I love my own space. I made sure that they understood it was very much a me thing, and that they hadn't done anything wrong. My flat sharing times were just over. I gave them plenty of time to look for a new apartment, and after our talk, they moved out quite quickly, and there was no bad blood between us. OP, I think it would help if you made your feelings clear and tell him that you love your own space and that this is very important to you. I, personally, wouldn't issue an ultimatum as long as you don't have the feeling that he's exploiting your kindness. Maybe just remind him kindly that he has to keep looking for his own place, and you really don't see this as a long-term solution. Yeah, some really good advice there. Let's go to some updates. We just had the uncomfortable conversation and I went in softly. I did not end up giving him a deadline at this time. I reminded him that this was temporary and grilled him on what he's been doing to look for an apartment. He admitted he'd been doing nothing and he had absolutely no plans, no leads, and hasn't made any attempt. However, I think he will leave soon of his own volition. He is very conflict avoidant and I'm very furious. After he admitted that he hadn't been looking for a place to live, nor was he looking for a job, I told him that the place where I work my second job was hiring. He told me he had a confession to make. I smoke weed. No crap, Sherlock, I can smell it every day. It's super strong and my entire house smells like weed. It just wasn't a problem since I smoke sometimes too. Would have been nice if you asked, but whatever. Anyway, he says he can't get a job because he smokes weed and thinks he can't pass a drug test. I suggested he stop smoking weed for a couple of weeks. He kind of went, meh. So if he legitimately believes he can't get a job because of weed in his urine, he is choosing daily weed over being a self-sufficient adult. I think it's an excuse. He would rather smoke pot than get a job, so I should support him? That's the actual choice he's making? I reminded him several times that him staying with me was always a temporary thing. He needed to start planning to leave, but he could take a couple months. Get on his feet. I'll help him get on his feet and get a plan in place. I explained why. I was incredibly clear and repeated myself several times. Now I'll be pinning down his conflict avoidant ass for uncomfortable conversations about job applications and housing resources at least twice a week. I'm going to be getting info from managers and employees at a bunch of different places about how they don't care about weed in the urine. It's legal where we live. I'm going to be researching and finding info on housing resources, apartments for sale and all that. Research is one of my strongest skills. I'm going to be so freaking helpful that the only way he'll be able to avoid getting a job is to move himself out. And if that doesn't work by the time he gets his big check in a couple of weeks, I'll give him the March deadline. I think Miss Nice Girl just flew out the window, and I'm going to be making French toast at 3 a.m. with no shame. Yeah, fair enough on OP for putting the foot down. Let's go to the next update. He came out of his room a little while after our conversation and told me he's moving back in with his sister tonight. I told him he didn't need to. I wasn't kicking him out. I just wanted him to start planning and getting ready to be on his own. He was in a passive-aggressive rage though, packed all his things except his cat and moved out. I now have another cat. I don't know if at some point he'll want the cat back or not. He's gone. I'm on my way to Home Depot. I'm changing the locks tonight. Okay, so someone gives you a place to live free of charge so you're not homeless on the street, and after they tell you that you need to look for a job, you storm out in a passive-aggressive rage? Yeah, good riddance.